America is so back. This past weekend's libs have lost their minds because of an epic UFC event that happened on the White House lawn. We'll talk about how awesome it is, how American patriotism is indeed a great thing, and the libs' response to that. We'll also talk about what's going on in Korea with the Seoul Pride Parade that happened this weekend, the degeneracy, our thoughts on it, how to navigate it, and also we're talking about Lee Jae-myung. President Lee Jae-myung is in Europe right now. What do we think about that? How do we navigate that? And then also, lastly, of course, the World Cup. The World Cup has started. Korea's doing great. A lot of great things happening, but also, of course, a lot of controversies, as is always with these international events about racism and this and that. Of course, when you have different groups of people come together, you're always going to have that kind of contention. But all of that and more today on The Kangmin Lee Show. Welcome to the Kangmin Lee Show. I thought it'd be fun to play that clip at the beginning of today's episode because I think it just shows the degeneration and just the absolute squalor of modern American culture. Hello and welcome. My name is Kangmin Lee. I'm the host of the Kangmin Lee Show. This is where we are all about restoring faith, identity, and civilization from east to west. Yeah, if in case you didn't know, that person, whatever you would call it, is Nina Lin. Nina Lin, and I'm so glad she's not Korean, because if she was so Korean, I'd be facepalming and apologizing constantly on behalf of the Korean community online and worldwide, saying we do not claim her. But yeah, that's Nina Lin, a professional shoplifter and sexual assaulter. She's been caught many times on camera doing so. And I just thought it'd be a good way to show you guys just dysfunctional assimilation. Like, that's what dysfunctional assimilation looks like. Because the reality is East Asians are the best immigrants to host countries, because East Asians, by and large, are respectful, they work hard, they produce, they don't steal, and they try to adopt as much as possible the broader culture. That's why you have, for example, Indians come in and their names are impossible to pronounce and very, very long. Meanwhile, the Korean next to you is going to be like, hey, what's up? My name is John Choi. You meet a Chinese guy. Oh, what's up? My name is Ethan Tan. So you have all these Koreans, Chinese, Japanese, they adopt these English names, so it's easy to navigate in American culture. They work hard, they do well in school, they don't commit crime. So Asians, by and large, are the best immigrants because they assimilate well. But then if the broader culture is degenerate, if it's ghetto, and the most influential people are these types of, let's just say, hoodlums who exhibit very degenerate and ghetto behavior. Yes, of course, people will aspire to exhibit such behavior because it rewards them, right? Like, the culture rewards them. People reward them with likes, viewership, etc. So that's just a side. And I know it's just funny. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot of claims that Nina Lin is actually a dude. I will not opine because I'm not sure, but I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility because look at that. It's just so, if I'm putting it mildly, it's repulsive. And I think we have to bring back shame to disincentivize such repulsive, unbecoming behavior. It's just so disgusting, especially when it comes out of an East Asian. Just an Asian acting like that, it's just so unbecoming. Just stop. But it is funny. We like to laugh on the internet. We like to have a good time because we're not always serious around here. We're serious insofar as we talk about real political issues and political realities, cultural phenomena, and problems that hurt actually suffering people and inflict actual suffering onto our neighbors and our families. But we like to laugh also on this stream. As a reminder, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you're watching over on YouTube and all of their channels. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, make sure to leave a 5-star review. And yeah, give me your super chat. Remember, at the end of each show episode, we are reading your super chats and we're answering your questions live on air. So make sure to send in super chats if you haven't already. And also, if you are generous and charitable and you want to join the rooftop army, become a soldier or a general in this fight for truth, also consider becoming a member. Become a member, support what we're doing over here on the Kongman Lee Show and on this channel. All that being said, lots to talk about today. Libs have lost their minds on the internet this past weekend for a variety of reasons. They're always losing their minds, outraged over the smallest things. So we'll get into that. Let's first talk about what happened in America this past weekend on West Watch. So liberals have been harping about this for weeks now, if not months, that the White House will be hosting a UFC event on the White House lawn. Now, it was epic. It is epic. Look at this picture. Look at this picture. And tell me that this is not epic. Absolute America maxing. This is just, how do you look at this? How do you look at this and be like, man, that's not cool. Okay, first of all, there's no way that you can look at this and be like, not be awestruck. It is so epic. It is a picture that you would only think that AI could create. You say, hey, ChatGPT, create for me the most American-looking image with fighter jets, Thunderbirds flying through the sky, red, white, and blue everywhere, the American flag waving, you have the White House in the background, patriots saluting their flag, singing the national anthem. America Max for me, ChatGPT, in a 9:16 image. This is a real picture. This is a real picture. Just look at those Thunderbirds just flying with the trail behind it, the American flag flying, the White House, the red, white, and blue, the people saluting or putting the hand on their chest for the national anthem because they love their country. How do you hate this? There's no way you hate this. And on top of that, those who hate this, imagine being so miserable that you hate American greatness. How? Look at this image. It's incredible. It is absolutely phenomenal. Here's the thing. Aesthetics are so important. It is absolutely important. Because why? We are beings who resonate with beauty and greatness. So this whole facts don't care about your feelings. All we have to do is win in the free marketplace of ideas. Oh yeah, we got to debate. And that's how we win the culture. That's a load of bull crap. I'm not saying that's bad. That's all good. That's why we do what we do on the show. And this is why we do what we do on the internet. But the reality is aesthetics, beauty, symbols of greatness, of valor. That's what moves the heart of men, and that's what activates, especially the young men, to fight for their country and to love their country again. That's what it's about. Here's some of these other pictures that we saw this past weekend, yesterday, because of the UFC fight. Look at this. I mean, come on, man. Come on. Look at this. The rainbow in the background with the Washington Monument, the lightning, the people, the patriots cheering with American flags in the crowd. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? God is an artist. But truly, the mandate of heaven. You know, in the past, a lot of kings believe that they have the divine right, that they have the mandate of heaven to rule over their citizenry. And come on. How do you not look at that picture and not deduce, man, there is something happening here. Thank God. Like truly, the Trump administrations, for all their failures, for all of the GOP's inaction. Like, it is God's mercy that Trump is in the White House right now, truly. And we'll touch on that a little bit, but look at this, man. I mean, just look at this. Dirt bikes, tricks, flying through the sky. Soldiers, right there, standing guard. Right there, right in front of the White House. Fighters exhibiting their strength. How do you not like this? And previously, I don't think we addressed this on the show, but yeah, publicly, I have addressed my dissatisfaction with Trump in regards to America's 250th, oh my gosh, I can't English today, 250th anniversary. You know what? I just give up. Anniversary, America's 250th birthday. Oh my gosh. By the way, I just forgot. I literally bought a Buc-ee's doll when I was in Buc-ee's this past weekend, and I forgot to put him on the desk. I will do that next episode. Let me know what I should name him, by the way. But for America's 250th birthday, he was supposed to have this world fair, and he's butchering it because of, cancellations by artists and delays and all of these problems, which I understand organizing an event of that scale is really tough, especially when you're trying to do all these other things as a president. But this event is arguably one of the greatest sporting events in modern American history. It is so patriotic. It is so unabashedly American. It is absolutely incredible. Look at this video. Look at this video. That Trump and Dana White right there? Bro! How do you hate that? How do you hate that? Land of the free, singing the national anthem, fighter jets flying, soaring through the sky, and then Trump saluting with Dana White by his side with the American flag waving. Dude, it's peak. It is so peak. How do you hate this? There's no way you hate this. Here's some other angles of the White House. What happened here? Look at this. Look at this. This is before the event started. With tanks right there, Humvees. Just absolute gold. Absolute gold. But right here, we have video. Next one. Yeah, right here. Look at this. Look at this. Just absolute America Max. Like genuinely America Maxing. The Thunderbirds flying in formation over the sky. Like, it truly doesn't get any better than this. And now my people might say, oh, Kangmin, you're such a shill for the military-industrial complex. Bro, American military greatness is one of the core parts of what made America so strong in the first place. America is such a young nation. It turns 250 years old this year. It is so young compared to a lot of other nations, especially in Europe and East Asia, that have persisted for thousands of years. America's young. Yet America's the strongest country in the world right now. Why? Because we're strong militarily. We have military technology. We have military infrastructure that is unparalleled throughout the entire world. People say that American military is a paper tiger. No, it's not. If it was such a paper tiger, how did we project so much strength throughout the world for the past century? And to me, honestly, hating the military is such a left-wing third worldist garbage take. And yes, I am against unnecessary, endless wars that do not benefit America's interests. But if it does benefit America's national interest, if it's in the best interest of the American people, then absolutely, the military exists for that reason, to defend America's interest both domestically and abroad. So of course, there's nothing wrong with hating B-2 bombers flying through the sky, Thunderbirds flying in formation, soaring through the sky. It's epic. Why do you think people love Top Gun Maverick so much when it came out 4 years ago? Oh, it's a propaganda for the military-industrial complex. Shut up. Dude, it's awesome. Look at these fighters, these pilots going in and just traversing new terrain, defeating their enemies, killing the bad guys. That's awesome. That's so awesome. This is why everything is this is so masculine, and greatness in politics and on the world stage, American symbolism, it is so inherently masculine. Look at this video right here. Tell me that you hate this. Watch this video. An eagle soaring through the crowd. Look at it. A bald eagle flying, soaring into her arms. It's just incredible. Look at how majestic that bald eagle is. Dude, that is epic. That is epic. And people chanting in the background, USA, USA, USA. These are patriots. These are people who love America. Truly, they love America. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a good thing to love your country. This is why I hate the left so much. They are defined by their disdain and hatred for America and everything America stands for. All of America's history, its customs, its legends, its traditions, its values, the heritage of America, they hate that. That is literally what defines the left. That's why you have this unholy alliance of the LGBTQ and Muslims. You have feminists and communists. Like, you have all of these people who would traditionally hate themselves, but why are they so in lockstep with one another in America? Because they're all defined by their hatred of America and, by extension, their hatred of Christianity. Now, I want to contrast what the Biden White House looked like a few years ago versus the Trump White House today. Look at this video. It is so clear. It is so clear, the contrast. Look at this. You have a bunch of trannies and drag queens dancing with the pride flag for all the pillars. Just an absolute desecration of the White House. And then you have this. Pure, unbridled Americanism, American patriotism. This is what it's about. Look, this is just 2 years ago, right here. Biden, the colors, making the White House look so ugly with the colors of the gay pride flag. And then Trump, last year and this year, during June, unapologetically American. Red, white, and blue. It is so preposterous to me as a normal person that you would equivocate left and right. Nothing could be further from the truth that, oh, left and right are both bad. Oh, left wing, right wing. Two birds of the same plane. Seriously? Seriously? Give me a break. Like, that's just, everyone knows. If you have two brain cells, if you're not trying to be intentionally a contrarian, you know that's not true. You know that the left wing is immeasurably more dangerous than the right wing in this country. No one is going around genuinely scared of being punched by Nazis. But people are genuinely scared now because of the advent of unbridled left-wing violence in this country. Yeah, we are pretty concerned about left-wing anarchists and terrorists completely terrorizing and ruining our communities. Black thugs going through our communities and looting stores. Going to Foot Locker and Nike, going into Apple, stealing all their products. Because of racism, more racism. Systemic racism caused this. And then they get away with impunity because to say otherwise, to lock them up in jail for their crimes is racism. I mean, these are the problems that we're talking about. This is the left. They caused these problems. They're the perpetrators of all this. Don't say that we're the same. We're not the same. We're nowhere near the same. No way. And that contrast just shows, right? The Biden administration, the left, it is the quintessential example of the longhouse, right? Safety, being nice, walking over eggshells, right? Consensus, feeling, safetyism. Just endless rainbow rituals to signal your virtue. Oh yeah, we love tolerance, compassion. We're going to accept all the most degenerate, disgusting lifestyles possible, and we're going to herald it as the peak of civilization. Really? Butt sex is something to be proud of on the White House lawn? Are you serious? Meanwhile, the Trump administration, right? We're swinging back. We're swinging back to a place of sanity, but to a place of strength. Risk-taking, ambition, competition, order, greatness. We are bringing all of that back right now in 2026. And so this correction is why people voted for Trump. This is why people were sick and tired of the radical left-wing sections of this country. And this is an absolute necessary correction. We are so glad to see it. America was not built as tolerance and, oh yeah, you're free to do whatever you want. Oh yeah, universal suffrage and gay rights. Oh yeah, being able to mutilate young children in the name of transgenderism. That is an American right because we are America. That's literally not what America was founded on. America was founded on principles, first and foremost Christianity, but it was founded on principles that exemplified strength, honor, courage. These are the things that we love. These are first principles too. But America is not a nation of nice people that just tiptoe around people and allow everyone to destroy their country. No, America is a nation of builders and warriors. That's why I love America. I am not ashamed to love America. I've got a lot of hate this past week because everyone's saying that, oh, you want to be white so bad because you love America. What is that supposed to mean? Like, unironically, these leftists are more white supremacists than I am because they're saying that America, and they're conceding with every single one of their arguments that America is a white country. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. But their conflation of me loving America to, hey, you just want to be white. You're licking the boot of the white man. So you're conceding that America's a white country? I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that's what you're saying. But yeah, it's just so preposterous. No, I've never wanted to be white. No, I've never have been ashamed of being Korean. Never wanted acceptance from white people. I love all people. I respect what Europeans have built in the West. It's incredible. Western civilization used to be the seat of Christendom. I'm not ashamed of that. That's objectively true. But yeah, it's so preposterous that they keep saying this. I'm like, okay, well, I don't care what you say because I love America. And not America in its degenerate state today, but America as it's traditionally understood. I love it. I love it. And now here's a video why I want to show you why elections matter. This is a fighter. His name is Mauricio Ruffy, and this is what he said yesterday. Or 2 days ago.
I have a message. In John chapter 3 verse 16 say, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son.
Yes, sir.
That whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Jesus changed my life. Jesus saved my life.
Amen.
Jesus wanna save your life too. Give your life to Jesus. Thank you so much.
Amen. Amen. Amen to that. Look at that. Mauricio Ruffy sharing the gospel on the world stage. Sharing the gospel on the world stage. Reciting John 3:16, saying, Christ is my Savior. He's your Savior. He came to die for you and your sins. He loves you. For God so loved the world that he sent his one and only Son, so that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Praise God for his grace, his love. You have Joe Rogan right there. You have Christian patriots right in the face of the biggest podcaster, arguably in the world, sharing the gospel. Don't tell me that elections don't matter. Don't tell me that elections don't matter. Elections matter. I would play the video for you, but it's too graphic to show. A few years ago, you had trans activists running topless and streaking on the White House lawn, shaking their fake boobs on the White House lawn. Now, you have patriots on the White House lawn reciting John 3:16 and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ to the entire world. Elections matter. Trump being in office right now is an objective good for the Christian and for the average, everyday American. This is incontrovertibly true. You cannot deny this. And as a Christian, if you think that Democrats are better than Republicans, And I will say this all the time. I hate the GOP because they're spineless, they're feckless. But Trump redefined what it means to be right-wing. And Trump is the one actually pushing the ball down the field for the betterment of America and especially for Christians. Trump is what allows the Trump administration, Trump being in office right now, allows for the gospel to be preached on the White House lawn. Versus a few years ago, degeneracy galore on the White House lawn. And by the way, libs were freaking out. They're like, oh, what a desecration. What a desecration. How dare you have a sporting event on the White House lawn? Give me a break. Like, you celebrated trannies running topless on the White House lawn, reenacting butt sex on the White House lawn, trying to groom little children on the White House lawn in front of the White House, flying pride flags. Give me a break. If you really think that that's not a desecration and that is something to celebrate versus a deeply patriotic, I love America, God-honoring event like this, the UFC, you're just not a serious person. Like, you should literally be locked up because you should just not be taken seriously. You need to be shoved into a mental asylum and given treatment because you're just not a serious person, genuinely. Now, this went viral. A fighter by the name of Josh Hokett, he said that Michelle Obama is a man. Oh, watch this. This is this people got really, really pissed at this.
Alex Pereira, I want a shama on your mama. And lastly, Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America?
Now, there's a lot of people freaking out about that. Even conservatives saying, oh, that's so classless. That's so classless. Why would you do that? Like, are we not allowed to joke? It's a joke, man. It's relax. We're not. It's really not that big of a deal. Now, would I joke about that publicly on the world stage, on the White House lawn? Yeah, maybe it's not appropriate, but it's funny. It's funny. Learn to laugh at our enemies who want to destroy us. Like, if you can't even laugh at the very enemies who are trying to destroy your country and rob the next generation of their inheritance, that they literally egg on political violence constantly. They want to kill babies for all stages of pregnancies. They want to mutilate young children. They want your daughters raped and killed because of mass immigration and diversity. If you don't understand that we can laugh at these people, you need to wake up. You got to understand what time it is. Like that, yes, learn to laugh at your enemies. Like Elijah the prophet laughed at the prophets of Baal. These worshipers of Satan, seriously, like we're not dealing with a difference of political opinions anymore. Seriously, the left is so unhinged. They're so demonic by every sense of the word. And I don't say that exaggerating. Like, truly, they are demonic. The things that they purport, the evil and the degeneracy that they proliferate throughout society, they're evil. Learn to laugh at your enemies. And by the way, this is obviously a sign that everyone knows the LGBTQ is nonsensical and truly an abomination. How do we know that? They're so offended when you call Obama a man. I thought that gender is just a social construct and people can identify as whatever they want. Oh yeah, if a man identifies as a woman, that's such a beautiful thing. If a woman is a man, oh, that's such a beautiful thing. Clearly it's not, because you find so much offense to it. Same thing with being gay. Like, literally, the left is calling all right-wingers closeted homosexuals. I thought that's a good thing. I thought being a homosexual was a good thing. Oh, no, it's actually, we're going to make fun of you because you're a closeted homosexual. You're a repressed homosexual. Okay, so you're admitting that being gay is something to be made fun of. Like, it is something that is undesirable for the individual and also in society. Everyone knows this. Like the reality, everyone knows the reality. That's why the left is so pernicious. They lie about it. They willingly lie to your face. And then they lie to themselves so that they continue the delusion and the grift so that they can effectuate whatever change they want in society for whatever pernicious and evil, wicked reasons they have personally for doing so. It's so everyone knows this to be true, that the LGBTQ is not desirable. Everyone knows this. It's just the left wants that for the person, and especially for children. For the average person, they want them to be indoctrinated into their degenerate sex cult, and they want children also to be indoctrinated. So, Lib's freaking out. You see this tweet. Jamie Bonkiewicz. She's a... She look, like she says it in her bio too. Part-time demon and agent of Satan. Oh, you're such an edgy. You're so edgy. And liberals always do the safe edgy thing. Oh yeah, like oh Lucifer. I'm an agent of Satan. Dude, in American society 100 years ago, you would have been locked up for that. We don't take that lightly. Like if you say you're an agent of Satan, like be gone. Get behind me, Satan. But I think Possum Reviews has a great response to her. She says, this is seriously the cringiest collapse of a nation in real time. And the Possum Review says, your boos mean nothing. We've seen what makes you cheer. That's so true. We've seen what makes you cheer. Like I said, all the most degenerate lifestyles. You cheer. You cheer when you rip apart babies in the womb. You cheer when migrants are raping young girls and our daughters. You cheer when there's assassination attempts on Donald Trump. You cheer when Charlie Kirk is dead. You cheer when Erica Kirk and her children are grieving and suffering and going through this hard time. You cheer when a healthcare CEO is killed in cold blood for the grave crime of being the CEO of a healthcare company. You cheer at this stuff. We've seen what makes you cheer. Your boos mean nothing. You have no moral weight. Your words mean nothing. See right here, they freak out that the honor guards were used at a UFC fight. They're freaking out. And look, I mean, seriously. Using honor guards to promote the most destructive sexual degeneracy and deviant lifestyles known to man. That's all great. That's amazing. Wow, American patriotism. That's what the left says. But then the honor guard being at the UFC fight for Freedom 250 on the White House lawn 2 days ago. Oh, that is such a desecration. No, we've seen what makes you cheer. Your words mean nothing. And then their counter protest to the UFC event was this.
Bound to lose, you fascists, bound to lose. Hey there, all you fascists, let me put you straight. When you come for the rest of us, we'll fight you at the gate and you will lose, you fascists, bound to lose. All you fascists bound
lose, fascists gotta lose. And these are the people who are clowning on the TPUSA halftime show at the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not going to say that the TPUSA halftime show was the greatest thing ever, but it was objectively, by all accounts and all metrics, a billion times better than whatever that was. Ooh, go fascists, go fascists. You know, imagine if TPUSA was singing at the halftime show, at the Super Bowl halftime show. Oh yeah, we're gonna own the libs, own the libs, own the libs. It'd be cringe. It'd be rightfully cringe. And then because a lot of those people who are there, they're part of Un-F America. I'm not gonna say it on the show. We don't cuss on the show. But they're supposed to be the left-wing alternative to TPUSA. And they just objectively have no traction. They have no cultural weight or cultural pull. That's how you know that the left is now creating right-wing alternatives, left-wing alternatives to right-wing movements and organizations. That's how you know that we're winning. That the left wing now has to create left-wing alternatives to the right wing. It has always been in our zeitgeist that the right wing has to create right-wing alternatives to the left-wing institutions. Now it's switching because we're winning. We are winning. We got to keep pushing forward because we are winning. Stop blackpilling all the time. But we're winning. And so it's just so cringe. It's the peak and height of cringe. Oh, fascists. We got just it's so they're so like not self-aware. And this is why they're losing the culture. Because people are so sick and tired of these pompous a-holes who sit atop their ivory towers and look down on you and tell you that, yeah, actually, you should be okay with the displacement of your country and the invasion into your country. You should be okay with all your children learning trans ideology in your schools. Oh, you don't want to be a bigot. You should be okay with criminals being let loose and stabbing people, going on stabbing sprees and shooting people, having gang wars all the time on the streets. Oh, you don't want to be a racist, do you? You can't be a racist. People are sick of it. Your culture sucks. The left doesn't know how to build anything. All they know how to do is tear down and destroy. Evil cannot build anything of value. It can only take what goodness has created and subvert it and destroy it. That's why building civilization is a hard task. It's so easy to tear down, but it's so hard to build. And this is why I respect the builders. This is why I always respected Charlie Kirk. I disagreed with him on a wide variety of issues, but on the essentials, I agreed with him. That this is a Christian country, that America is first and foremost a people, that we need to retake this country for Christ, and America doesn't need to be ashamed of its history. Yeah, a lot of those things. I don't think Charlie Kirk, and he was building that. He was redefining this age for young patriots to love America again. I'll always respect that infinitely more than those who constantly harp on the internet. I will respect those who do the groundwork, who actually confront the issues and go in person to contend in the culture war for Christ. And they shot him and killed him for it. That's why they killed Charlie Kirk. I'll infinitely respect those kind of people more than people who just constantly complain on the internet and never try to build anything. Now, you had people like Stephen A. Smith say, gotta be honest, this UFC event at the White House looks spectacular. This is a big-time show. This is some impressive stuff I'm looking at. Props to UFC President Dana White and the show they put on. It's big time, plain and simple. So true. So true. I like Stephen A. Smith. Yeah, I actually like this guy. There's a clip of him before. We won't play it, but he said, maybe it's time for black people to start voting Republican. Because we've been voting Democrat for generations now. What have they given us? They haven't given us anything. At least when we vote Republican, then we could try to hold them accountable to do what's in the best interest for hurting black Americans. I'm like, hey, that's actually not a bad point. Not a bad point. And he got slammed for it. For this tweet, he got slammed for it. Like, oh, are you okay with Josh Hawkins calling Michelle Obama a man? Wow, you're a sellout, you traitor. He also called all the same words, Uncle Tom, coon, all of those racial insults when he said that maybe we should consider voting for Republicans. Hey, man, I like the guy. But even people like Stephen A. Smith, who isn't necessarily right-wing, he's saying that was an all-time show. This person on X, super fan, McGregor Rousey. I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, but this is the coolest-ish that I've ever seen. Of course it is. If you have two brains, and if your brain hasn't been completely rotted by left-wing poison and delusion, yeah, of course, you're going to look at the UFC event on the White House lawn, and you're going to say, that's greatness. That is awesome. How do you not resonate with that? The aesthetics are so peak. That's what I love about Trump. Trump's a showman, and we need some of that in American politics because not every single person is going to understand the intricacies of public policy and foreign policy and economic policy. But the average person will resonate with incredible symbols and exhibitions of Americanism. So we make no apologies on this show for loving America and being unapologetically pro-America because we love this country. And so we want this country as the most powerful country in the world and the richest country in the world to be submitted to Christ, a nation that honors the Lord, like it says in Psalms. Blessed is the nation that honors Christ. We want that, and we want America to do well. We do, of course. And whether you have a Democrat or Republican in office, and of course we want more Trump-aligned people in office throughout all branches of federal and also state and local governments. Yeah, but regardless, we should want America to do well. We should want Americans to succeed. And because we believe in building. We believe in restoring civilization and building civilization, not tearing it down. So we are unapologetically pro-America. The UFC Freedom 250 event was spectacular. Huge props to the Trump admin and Dana White at UFC for putting on that incredible event. I wish I was there, but alas, I was out of town with other business this past weekend. But yeah, Trump has a pulse, truly, I believe, of the average American and what they're longing for. And like I said previously on this program, Trump is a symbol of America. That's why those who hate America hate Trump, and those who love America, even if they're left-wing, even if they're actually liberals and they love America, they love Trump. That's how you have so many disaffected liberals vote for Trump and be Trump supporters today. I'm friends with a lot of liberals who are actually liberal, but they're friends that they like Trump. Why? Because he is a symbol of American patriotism, nationalism, and strength. We love to see that. Huge props. And that doesn't take away from failures and mismanagement from the Trump administration. But at the same time, there is no use in counter-signaling this. You see a lot of people on the right wing, oh, this is just goy slop. Or are you enjoying your bread in circuses, goyim? I'm like, bro, like, can we enjoy stuff? Like, we're allowed to enjoy things, okay? And that doesn't take away from, yes, the problems in this country and the problems in the Trump admin. But when Trump does something good and we have incredible, spectacular events like this doesn't make you a shill. It just makes you a normal human being. Get that through your skull. We're allowed to enjoy things. We'll touch on this with the World Cup later, but people say that about the World Cup. Oh, you're enjoying your bread and circuses? Goyim, goy slop. Okay, dude. I'm just not taking you seriously. It's just like we're allowed to enjoy things in life. Stop being always such a purity spiralist person who's just so miserable all the time. Like, we can enjoy things. We can enjoy these exhibitions and symbols and displays of American greatness. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a good thing. It's actually a healthy thing for society to have that regularly, so that, you know, people are motivated and people feel love, and their love for their country is reignited again. That's it for our Westwatch segment. Let's talk about what's going on in Korea on Eastwatch. All right, so this past weekend we had the Seoul Queer Culture Festival, their version of the Pride parades that, you know, ravage American cities during this Pride month in June. Is just disgusting and terrible to behold. This is what it looked like. Here's a video that we have for the Seoul Queer Pride Parade in 2026. So you see all these flags, gay flags, trans flags, intersectional pride flags. Yeah, it's the usual, right? It's the usual. You see a lot of foreigners there. See a lot of flags. Just advocate for the most degenerate stuff. And yeah, right here, like, you have these people in their dog masks because it's just a fetish. It's just a sexual fetish. The entire movement, the gay movement, the LGBTQ movement, it is just a sexual fetish of people wanting to have their kinks be public wherever they go, whenever they go, and have people affirm and celebrate their degenerate lifestyles. And obviously, it's all, like we say all the time, it's just a rejection of Christianity and hatred of Christianity. Look at these people just absolutely blaspheming Christ. Yeah, it's just, I'm just so, it's just, that's what it is. Like, we have some additional footage of the Pride Parade that we can show you. Right here, this is from the Korean Herald. It's not pulling up for some reason. Don't know why it's not pulling up. All right, well, we can skip this part, but we can show you a photo. Yeah. And they just look typical, right? It's just a woman with the shaved heads and dyeing their hair all sorts of obnoxious colors like pink and blue. Do we have other photos? Okay, right here too. I think this is kind of important to mention. Monks tie rainbow bracelets. Couples hold babies and share 100-day rice cakes. So there's a trend right now of young people going back to Buddhism. It's not as prevalent as people on the internet say, but there is a return to religion in Korea in the same way there's a return to religion in America. Now people are returning to Christianity in America, but there's like a good portion, I would say, of the next generation of Gen Z and millennials going back to Buddhism. And Buddhists are trying to make it hip and cool to be Buddhist. They're holding raves in front of Buddhist temples and, you know, tapping into modern culture phenomena. But this is why the answer for Korea is nationalist. It is Korea first. It is embracing your Korean heritage, but it is also distinctly Christian. And why I say that is because things like Buddhism has been a part of Korean culture and history for many, many years. Obviously, Confucianism was the dominant religion in the Joseon dynasty, and before that was Buddhism in the Goryeo dynasty. But Buddhists and Buddhism will not save Korea. It won't. Because they have no moral foundation. It is like very Gnostic in nature. But it is these Buddhists who are going out, try to reach the young generation and the next generation and handing out rainbow bracelets and being all pro LGBTQ. The answer has to be Christ. And it always will be Christ because Christ is the firm foundation in Christianity objectively and so firmly is against these destructive lifestyles and these abominations that lead you to hell and also destroy your life, destroy your family, destroy your children. Christianity has to be the way forward for the Korean. It was the path forward for Korean liberation during the Japanese colonial era. It was the way forward for Korean resilience and strength, especially during a time of poverty. That's why in Korea you have more churches than convenience stores in Korea. That's how prominent Christianity is and how important it was for the fabric of building what is now known as modern-day Korea. It has to be Christianity. That's why these people mock Christianity all the time. We have a picture right here of this person. Of course, we have these furries. It's just furries. You know, you have the furries, of course, because they're trying to normalize what you call as zoophilia, right? But yeah, zoophilia. It's just so disgusting. I'm just sick of it. It's really disgusting. Like, I do not recommend at all to the average person listening to this broadcast to look into the zoophilic community online. But I remember it was like a few years ago. I saw some of them pop up on my newsfeed because it was like really popular at the time. It was like a point of internet contention and discourse. And yeah, just the things that they're saying about having and conducting sexual acts with their dogs, with a cow. I mean, it's so disgusting. And they have flags for this. Don't look it up, but I don't know. If you want to be informed, I guess by all means, but they have flags for all of their fetishes for their specific animals. It's so disgusting. It is so disgusting. And I know that furrydom and the furries used to be a harmless, we just want to dress up as anthropomorphic animals. I get that. Because there's like, I see these Christian furries who follow me too, and I'm not going to counter signal you. I'm not going to denounce you, but I'm like, why are you a furry as a Christian? It's kind of strange to me. I'm not going to impart any ill will against you, but of course, it's become a symbol of zoophilia, which is just bestiality. And we warned about this, by the way. We say if you accept all different forms and alternate forms of sexuality other than what is traditionally known as marriage, man and a woman in a covenant marriage to have children, that is the whole purpose of marriage, really. We said, hey, it's going to lead to this. Oh, you're just fear-mongering. You're just homophobic. Now we're in a place Now we're in a place where every single degenerate sexual lifestyle is accepted in this community. The slippery slope fallacy is not a fallacy, it's a reality. The slippery slope, hello, of course it is. If you remove the guardrails and the fences that kept you and your society in order, of course, everyone's just going to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and the most unthinkable, revolting actions and behaviors will come to light and be normalized in society. But like I was saying, they just hate Christianity. Look at this sign. This person, I don't know what this person is. It's definitely a dude, but I don't know what they identify as. They spray painted their whole body as pink. And they have this cross that says F Christian nationalism. And in Korean, it says pagan 우월주의 종교를 물러가라. So in English, that means get the white chauvinistic religion out. Like, get out this white chauvinistic religion. And the irony of that, I have a post where I outline it. I'll just read it. I'll just read my post. The irony of this post, okay, is that all the LGBTQ identities that are prevalent, and again, they're not prevalent, they're so niche. Most Koreans hate this stuff. Whether you're left or right, they hate this stuff in Korea. Each one of their LGBTQ identities is imported Western degeneracy. So queer in Korean is queer, lesbian is lesbian, gay is gay, transgender is transgender, and non-binary is non-binary. And so they're all English loan words. Korean never had any words in their vernacular or vocabulary to describe LGBTQ identities and categories until the 20th century because they were so foreign and unthinkable for most of Korean history. Of course, they had words where they described same-sex behavior, but that's it. That's all they had because, of course, we had degeneracy. There's nothing new under the sun. You had degenerate lifestyles in the past, but it was so foreign and unthinkable to Korean culture and Korean history that they never had any words to describe a LGBTQ identity. Like, no one was actually, you're gay or you're a transgender. Like, that wasn't a thing. And so all the current LGBTQIA, LGBTQ, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all these terms in Korea are modern borrowings that enter Korean through contact with Western sexological concepts. And that all proves to show that these degenerates, that person who's holding up a sign, a cross, just blaspheming Christ, saying F Christian nationalism, 백인 종교 물러가라, 나가라. They don't hate Western influence. They just hate goodness, truth, and order. They hate beauty. They hate all that which is good, which is basically Christianity. They just hate Christianity. And they import and adopt the most diseased, dysfunctional parts of the West today. And there's really nothing you can say except that it's truly demonic. It really is demonic. There's no other way to describe it. Like, these people hate Christ so much that they see where even in Korean society, where not the majority of Koreans are Christian. There's a lot of Christians in Korea, but the majority are not. Like 30% of Koreans are Christian. But the majority do not like this lifestyle. They do not like the LGBTQ. They're so against it because it's so foreign to them and it's so disordered. Everyone knows this. But the reason why they say that, oh, you're only against it because it's Western influence, it's the white man's religion, Christianity coming and robbing your minds, brainwashing you. The only reason why they say that is because they hate the truth. They hate Christ, who is the Logos, who is the originator of all things logic, reason, and truth. They hate the one true God. They hate the transcendent moral order that is, set up and instituted by God for all of humanity. They hate that. They hate that. They hate God, the one true God. They hate him. Everything that they do on the streets of Seoul during their queer parade, trying to normalize and have every single person bow down for their degenerate lifestyles, that is all just a rejection of Christ, a rebellion against God. That's all it is. It's really that simple. They want to indulge their sinful lifestyles. They hate when people tell them no. And they just literally reject the one and true God. They hate God. They hate Jesus Christ. That's what it is. That's all it boils down to. So don't tell me you hate Western influence because you actually embrace Western influence. It's just the worst parts of it. All of this stuff about the LGBTQ and these ideas of non-binary and transgenderism, such preposterous ideas, completely unthinkable. Yeah, they're all imported from the West. Yes, they are. And this is where Koreans need to get really, really objective with understanding the dynamics of Western influence in Korean society. The right wing in Korea is very unapologetically pro-America, and I don't think that's necessarily wrong to be pro-America. We want to be pro-America. In Korea, like I said previously on this episode, I love America. But when America is the number one importer of LGBTQ and racial consciousness and critical race theory into your country, why would you celebrate American influence? Like, you shouldn't just be like, oh yeah, American influence is, by and large, blanket slate, a good thing for Korea. Because it's not. Clearly it's not. These are all imported ideas from the West. Koreans had no conception of this until very recently. That's why now they're having like these non-binary, gender non-conforming K-pop groups to appeal to a global audience in Korea. It is absolute garbage. Korea is adopting this. Now, again, most Koreans don't accept this. But as you normalize this throughout society, yeah, like people will eventually be like, okay, yeah, whatever. You saw this in America. Gay marriage, which is not marriage, it's just same-sex union, if you want to call it that. That was largely, before Obergefell in 2015, most Americans didn't approve of it. Now, most Americans do. Because it's been so normalized throughout society in America. We shouldn't want that in Korea. So, American influence, do we want that in Korea? It depends on what that influence is. And if we're importing the worst parts and the most diseased, dysfunctional, disordered parts of American influence into Korean society, that's not something we should want. And by the way, all of this is not organically funded by Korean companies or Koreans themselves. This is all funded by foreign NGOs, Western NGOs, globalist NGOs. And so a lot of people say it's the Jews behind it. Yeah, there's a lot of secular Jews behind it, of course. This is why a lot of right-wingers also in Korea also need to stop being so blindly pro-Israel just because they're a democracy. No, like, they tout that they have the largest pride parade in Asia and in the Middle East in Tel Aviv every year. Like, why? Like, what? I don't know. As a Christian, as a Korean American, as an American citizen, I don't like any of that. So why are we pro-Israel? And why are we just so unapologetically pro-Jew? That makes no sense to me. But it really is just foreign influence. The foreign influence is what's driving the queerness and the LGBTQ in Korea. Really, that's what it is. It's the introduction of all this nonsense ideology into Korea. And yes, by and large, it's very fringe. It's interesting because a lot of the feminists in America are pro-trans, which everyone always points out the hypocrisy, right? How can you be a feminist but also advocate for men taking over your spaces? Yeah, it's stupid. But in Korea, actually, most of the hardcore feminists, the 4B feminists, are like, what do they call them? TERFs. Trans exclusionary radical feminists. So they hate the trans stuff. So the radical left wing in Korea hates the trans stuff, and then the right wing hates the trans stuff and the LGBTQ stuff. So then where is this coming from? Well, it's like a different faction. That's why you can't neatly chart American politics and culture war into Korean politics and culture war. But by and large, this is niche. This is only really promoted by the Jinbodang, the progressives in Korea. But the problem is the DPK, which is the largest party in Korea with the most National Assembly seats, and that is the party of current President Lee Jae-myung. Yeah, they are sympathetic to this. They're not completely pro-LGBTQ like the Democratic Party is in America, but they're sympathetic to this, which is why they're trying to pass the anti-discrimination law, which makes displays of being against alternate lifestyles illegal, and you will be punished, penalized, or prosecuted for it, which is absurd, absolute absurdity. And of course, even with all that degeneracy, you had the counter protests. So here's footage of a lot of young Korean female patriots marching against the LGBTQ. Look at that, in their feminine skirts, holding guns. Well, not actual guns, right? And they're marching with Christian symbolism. They're also dancing right here on top of a truck. Yeah, so they say that sign says 동성애는 죄악. So it's like the worst. Like homosexuality is the worst. And obviously in English they say no same-sex marriage. 하나님의 심판. So God's judgment be upon you. All that stuff. And I think that's good. That's all good. And this is like an objective win for Korea and Koreans. The Korean right-wingers who object to and are against the normalization of LGBTQ in society. Because optics matter. Like, it's all an optics war when it comes to this kind of stuff to sway public opinion. But, like, for example, this sign, it says right here in Korean, 한국 동성애로 망한다. I'm so bad at reading it sideways. And it says Korea, through homosexuality and same-sex marriage, it will be destroyed. And that's so true. That is an objective fact. Objective fact. Because Korea right now has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. People aren't getting married and having children. And so if you want to save Korea and keep Korea alive and have Korea exist for next generations, yeah, you cannot normalize this. This is also why Korea permitting abortion right now is utter insanity. Why would you permit abortion? And why would you allow and try to normalize same-sex attraction, sodomy, transgenderism, when your birth rates are in the gutter? You got to increase those birth rates. How do you increase birth rates? It is only by normal marriage, normal male-female dimorphic sexual relations that you create a child. That is not only how God created the world, that is just how things have been for all of human history. Male, female, coming together to have children. That's why this sign right here, which is great. This is one of the most powerful signs right here. 엄마 아빠가 사랑해서 나를 낳았어요. So, 엄마 아빠, mom, dad, through their love, I came to life. Right? Like I was born. That's the messaging that Korea needs. Because why? It is not merely a religious and Christian argument, but if you're trying to sway like the entirety of Korea, then you have to also make anthropological arguments. Because people all understand this, that it is within a healthy family that children thrive. A mother, father. Because all of us, we all come from one mom and one dad. And so to really hammer that messaging, especially in Korean, and especially message of love, like truly it's the love of a father and a mother that births children and gives new life. That is the messaging that we need. It is through the love of my father and my mother that I've been given the gift of life. That is the messaging that needs to happen. We also need this kind of messaging. 한국에서 퀴어 동성애 교육 웬만일까? 가정에서 미리미리. So it says in Korean, why is it in schools? Like in schools, they're teaching queer and same-sex attraction and homosexuality? What the heck? Why are they teaching that? Okay, then we have to, in our own families, protect them and teach them the proper view of sexuality. And that's what it's saying. So you have to prepare in advance at home. And see, 223,000 likes, like a lot of Koreans agree with the sentiment. Teach your children, protect your children at home from this garbage. And that's why you don't see such gratuitous displays in Korea of queerness and the LGBTQ like you see in America, where in America you have people walking around naked at pride parades in front of children and conducting very lewd, disgusting sexual acts in front of children. Yeah, you don't see that in Korea. You would literally be locked up forever. But the thing is, again, it all starts here. It all starts here. Korea culturally, with this kind of cultural degeneracy and these social contagions, they're always like 10, 15 years behind America. And then now, so 10 years ago, America was largely, they didn't accept this stuff. Now, pride parades with adults walking around naked and conducting lewd acts in front of children, that's normalized now. And if you say anything, you're a hateful person, you get fired from your job. So Koreans have to be vigilant. They have to be vigilant. And they need to be really, really, really like on top of their game and not be okay. Just because it's fringe right now, you cannot accept it. You cannot just dismiss it as fringe, because the way that these things spread throughout society is truly like a wildfire. And in an instant, it becomes normalized. So from every single level of society, whether it's institutional power in politics, whether it's culturally, we have to block this, and we have to do all that we can in Korea to block this. Now, and stop its spread. Now, I do want to touch on this sign right here. It says, homosexuality is sin, return to Jesus. Now, a lot of people in Korea, a lot of the super pro-LGBTQ people, they take this and they actually make fun of it. So in Korean, it says right here, this caption, 동성애는 신이다. So shin sounds like sin, right? Shin in Korean is God. It means God. And it says also, 재수 씨에게 돌아와라. So it's like basically the wife of your younger brother is 재수 씨. So it's like, oh yeah, like sister-in-law, return to sister-in-law. It's so funny. And they mock it. And I'm not saying rightfully so, like you should never mock Christ no matter what language it's in. But this is actually the problem optically of Koreans using English to advocate for traditional marriage and traditional sexual relations. And why I say that is because, yeah, like they can mock it. You give ammo to enemies to not only mock what you're saying, to say like homosexuality is God, ha ha ha, and they can't come up with new slogans to galvanize and mobilize their base, but also it gives credence to the claim of leftists in Korea and pro-LGBTQ activists and progressives that Christianity is only merely a Western import, and as Koreans, we should reject foreign influence. Like, you give credence to that argument, which you shouldn't. You shouldn't. I know that the left, our enemies, will lie about us no matter what, but you shouldn't give credence and ammo to the enemy unintentionally. As a Korean, you need to be fighting against LGBTQ as a Korean. Like, not using English. You don't need to use English. Use Korean, fight as a Korean, not as, like, don't use English. There's no need to use English. No need to use English. And so optically, I think that a lot of Korean right-wingers can win. You saw those young women in their skirts, very feminine, dancing and saying, yeah, like, we are against this. True love is between, in terms of sexuality, like between man and woman in marriage. That is a good thing. That is how we have society flourish, because the family is the building block of society. All of that messaging, great. That's what we need. But you do not need to say it in English. Just say it in Korean. Don't give your enemy ammo to make fun of you intentionally. Like, don't be sloppy. Like, with optics, you have to be sharp. You have to be as wise as a serpent and as innocent as a dove. And here, right here, you have, this is just a proof that it's all foreign funded. This is all foreign funded. The British Embassy Seoul is proud and delighted once again to operate a booth at the Seoul Queer Festival alongside Australian Embassy and New Zealand Embassy, sharing our spirit of solidarity. UK stands with LGBT+. And we will continue to work toward a society where dignity, equality, and human rights are enjoyed without discrimination in Korea and the UK and around the world. Leftists don't hate imperialism. They keep saying, oh yeah, you colonizer, when they're trying to insult white people. You colonizer. We hate imperialism. No, you don't. You don't hate imperialism. You just like your own form of imperialism. This is why right-wingers need to stop adopting their frame. In the same way, you need to stop saying same-sex marriage because it's not marriage. Stop adopting their frame. Stop adopting their frame when it comes to imperialism, because they don't hate imperialism. They don't hate colonialism. They don't hate conquest. They actually love it when it's done by their side. Do not do it. Do not allow for this imperialistic nonsense of the LGBTQ. Do not allow for LGBTQ imperialism to proliferate throughout Korean society. Korean patriots, you must rise up. And arguably, I am so sorry to say this. This might ruffle some feathers. The democracy protests in Korea, that's all good. Because what happened with the recent elections, it is really, really like a blunder. It is a mismanagement. It is a failure of epic proportions. That is all true. But that same energy you need to be directing against this Pride Parade. You need to be directing it against this because why? Fundamentally, more important than your political system is the family. Preserving the family will always be infinitely more important than whatever political system your country has. I'm not saying it's unimportant because politics creates policies which affect people. And so how we can flourish in a society with families, it is all governed by politics. Sure. Yes, that's all true. But that's why you need to be on the front lines against the LGBTQ to advocate for pro-family policies and governance and orientation in society. We need to be a pro-family movement in Korea. There needs to be a pro-family movement in Korea that is so and unapologetically against the LGBTQ and the excesses of it because it is wickedly evil. And it completely destroys families. Like, that is the objective. Like, that has to be the first and foremost primary political objective. It is for flourishing families and communities. That is the objective. That really has to be the objective, no matter what. Why? Because economies ebb and flow. Culture ebbs and flows. Everything changes in especially our rapid-paced society. But what stays constant always is, one, the word of God. But when you're talking about politically, in the body politic, it is the family. Like, that will always stay constant, no matter what jobs you have, whether you move from one city to another city, whether you move from one career to another career, whether this politician gets into office and another politician gets in office, whether this law is passed, that law is passed. It'll all change. But what doesn't change is your family. Your family will always be your family no matter what. We need to emphasize that. And that needs to be a sole priority. And if the LGBTQ lobby and the foreign influence and these activists take power in Korean society, like, there really is no turning back. You're going to turn into what America and Europe has become, which is objectively a cesspool. And it's going to be really hard crawling back. Right now, in a place where Korea, the majority of Koreans do not like the LGBTQ, do not accept of it, you must tap into that right now and stop the spread of it right now. Now, speaking of foreign influence, I think this tweet, actually, this is something that Koreans need to understand. He said in Korean, on the way home, a middle-aged or older man saw my t-shirt and said, so you're saying same sex is good? If it's homosexuality, then this kid, meaning me, wouldn't have been born, right? He went on to say that he gave birth to me and got married. And even then, he couldn't wrap his head around it. And when I said I did it in America, don't mess with me, he backed off. The all-purpose spell, I did it in America. Now, translation's wrong. Obviously, he's saying that, oh, I got this shirt in America. And then he backed off because of the spell, the one phrase, oh, I did it in America, don't mess with me. This is where right-wingers in Korea need to reclaim their sense of sovereignty and their identity as a Korean. And not just see everything that America does or everything that America exports into Korea as inherently good. You saw that. He's like, you can't have children with LGBTQ lifestyles because that is disordered and is only between man and woman you can have children. And we want every child to have a mother and a father. That's why being an orphan is really, it's terrible and it's an unfortunate circumstance because we all come from one mother, one father. We belong to that, our mother and father. So yeah, well, why are you saying that it's good? Oh, I got the shirt in America. Oh, sorry. I'm quiet. Let me back off now. The right wing in Korea needs to move away from their blind, I guess, elevation of America on a pedestal. Oh, don't you love America? Yes, I love America. But what I'm saying is that you have to understand America in its proper context and love America for what it traditionally stood for and what it should stand for, not what foreign subversives and liberals say it stands for. But just because it's America, because, oh, I got this shirt in America. Oh, yeah, they're like, oh, okay, I'm back off. No, you cannot just because it's made in America, just because you got it in America, just because it comes from America, doesn't make it inherently good. It doesn't hold, and it shouldn't hold power over you as a Korean. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. So, just because America does it doesn't make it inherently good. Please, the Korean right wing needs to understand this. They need to understand this. That number one, America's not going to come and save you, Korea. I'm sorry. They're not going to come in and swoop your president out like they did in Venezuela. They're not going to engage in regime change in South Korea. Why would they do that? They're not going to do a joint U.S. Korean investigation into election fraud. I'm sorry, they're not. They really won't. Why? Because the current administration in Korea is, yes, they are against America, but they're not like North Korea against America. But they are against America in American interest. Marco Rubio said himself that they're not going to intervene. The Secretary of State in America said, we will not intervene in the interest of a democracy, South Korea. The people will vote for their interest. And you're going to have pro-America presidents. You're going to have a little more anti-America presidents, but we'll work with them. They're not going to go in. And it's deeply unpopular now among Americans to intervene in foreign affairs. Because why? What is Trump's motto? Make America great again, but America first. America first. Americans are focused on American issues first and foremost now. And that is the pulse, both left and right, but definitely on the right. So Koreans need to understand, okay, our goal should not be just to be like America and model everything America does, per se, but it is to be sovereign as your own country, proud, standing on your own 2 feet. That needs to be the goal of Korean politics, especially when you're talking about culturally. And so last thing, a few things I want to talk about right here. There is this, not this politician, for the next tweet, please. The lesbian. There's this lesbian girl who was at the protest, and she's a cute looking girl. Like I'm not gonna say she's ugly and dysgenic or anything like that. But look at this photo. So this is a girl who was at the queer parade, and this Korean lesbian's quote unquote girlfriend. What do you notice? You notice that they present themselves masculine, short hair, wearing a button-up shirt that only men wear. It's clearly a male button-up shirt. This is why I say lesbianism isn't actually real. It isn't. Most lesbians, I don't know, maybe I'll get flack for this, but most lesbians are just hurting girls and hurting women who have daddy issues and trauma from men. Lesbianism isn't real because they say they reject gender roles. Oh, we're going to reject the patriarchy, but they can't be in a relationship without gender roles. They can't be in a relationship without one of the people in the relationship acting like the man and one of the people acting like the woman. They reject men, lesbians reject men, but they still need one to act like the man in the relationship. So you really cannot escape sexual dimorphism and pair bonding instincts. Nature wins every time. Seriously, you cannot escape the dimorphic nature of human beings. We are inherently male and female. That desire is intrinsic in all of us. We all look for that. That's why even in same-sex relationships like this, you have one who is more masculine and one who is more feminine. Anyone can look at this picture and conclude, okay, the woman on the left is the masculine one. The woman on the right is the feminine one. You can even see it in their behavior. The one who's taking the picture in the selfie, who typically does that in the relationship, it's the girl. And who usually just goes along for the selfie and taking the pictures, it's the guy. This is just the male-female dynamics in any romantic or sexual relationship. It is so inherent and ingrained in who we are that even in these alternate lifestyles, they can't escape it. They can't. That being said, that's why it's so disordered, because it's not in the proper context. But they always do this. You see all those trans couples too online where it's like a trans woman and then a trans man, and they come together and they're like, oh yeah, we're bisexual or something. It's like, no, you're straight. You just like the other gender, although they identify with the other gender. Very strange stuff. Very disordered stuff. But yeah, you cannot escape human nature because God created us as dimorphic beings to be pair bonded, male, female. Why? Because that is the only context by which we can create new life. Sexual relations, what is the end goal? I'll end with this for this segment. The end goal of sexual relations between male and female is procreation. It is not personal pleasure. Now, intimacy is a goal, for sure. That is a function of sex, but it is ultimately for procreation. That is the function of sexual relations. It is so that you can have people and new life so that you can have the continuation of society and the human race and your nation. That is the function of it. So if we continuously try to remove the understanding that, hey, when you get married and you have sex, all sorts of sexual relations exists for creating children. That is the actual natural byproduct and the purpose and goal of it. Then you get sexual dysfunction. You get people sleeping outside of marriage, not waiting until marriage. You have not only that, but also, right, LGBTQIA, ABCD, EFG lifestyles. That's what it is. So we have to get back to that core principle. And I know it's a little uncomfortable because a lot of Koreans don't like talking about it in public. But you must get back to that core principle through education, through information and programming that marriage, man, woman, that's it. Sexual relations is for conceiving and birthing new life. That's what it's for. And we need to get back to that. And I believe when you get back to that, I think Koreans will be very, very, very sympathetic to it. And we'll be able to, I guess, what is it? Get out. 물러가라. We can chase out the foreign invaders and the insane leftist influence that is wreaking havoc throughout Korean society through the LGBTQ. All that being said, like I said, it is fringe. A lot of the people love the counter-protesters that we showed you. But Koreans need to put their foot down now, not be ashamed or afraid of being canceled. And if you want to save your civilization, the number one priority has to be saving and preserving the institution of the family. And as a conservative, if you're a conservative, if you don't conserve the family, then there's really, I don't know what else you're conserving. Seriously. That has to be the priority. Now, next, we want to talk about Lee Jae-myung. So Lee Jae-myung is currently in Europe. And then so he visited the Vatican and he met with the Pope. And so let's play this segment real quickly. Lee Jae-myung's with the Pope.
President Lee Jae-myung and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung have arrived at the Apostolic Palace. The
Apostolic Palace. Apostolic Palace.
For the first time since taking office and invited him to visit Korea.
2027년 서울 세계 청년 대회의 성공적인 개최를 위해서 긴밀히 협력해 나가기로.
The meeting lasted about half an hour. President Lee conveyed the Korean people's wish for lasting peace on the Korean peninsula. He and Pope Leo agreed that cooperation, reconciliation and dialogue are necessary even though inter-Korean relations are strained at this point.
See you in Korea. Very good.
At an ensuing meeting, President Lee and the Cardinal Secretary of State discussed the possibility of a papal visit to North Korea. Regarding inter-Korean relations, President Lee quoted the famous verse from the Bible, "Knock and the door will be open to you." He said he will continue trying, although patience is needed. The Vatican responded by saying that not only patience but hope is also needed. The President gifted the Pope with the Embrace of God sculpture. Cheongwade says it depicts the story of the prodigal son and symbolizes compassion for humanity, forgiveness, reconciliation, and the restoration of community. On Tuesday, President Lee is set to begin his official schedule at the G7 summit in Evian, France. Eyes are on whether he will meet with US President Donald Trump at the event.
All right, so we all saw that. There's a lot of things I want to say about that, but one thing I do want to say about that is that I just hate I hate when liberals do this thing with the Bible where they completely misapply it. It's just absolute terrible biblical hermeneutics. When Jesus says knock and the door will be open, ask and you shall receive, he's talking about salvation. It's a soteriological point. It's a salvific thing. It's not, oh, I will knock and the door will be open and then we'll be able to talk to Kim Jong-un. Like, what are you doing? Like, they do this thing with Micah 6:8, right? Seek justice. Oh, therefore, love mercy. Oh, therefore, that we must support BLM. Huh? How does that chart? what does Micah 6:8 and us seeking justice have to do with supporting an avowedly Marxist black grievance organization that lies to you and literally steals your money. Like, well, where's the connection there? They do the same thing with Galatians 3. There's neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female. We're all one in Christ Jesus. Therefore, you must be pro-transgenderism because there's neither male or female. What? No. They just literally use Bible verses for whatever context that they want. It's like, no, like you don't take scripture and you shove it into whatever you want to say. You look at scripture in its entirety, what the original authors meant, what God is trying to say, and then you apply that to whatever it is that you're viewing in terms of cultural issues, the world. So you're not supposed to take what Jesus said about salvation and apply it to geopolitics on the Korean Peninsula. That doesn't really chart. So I don't like when they do that. I think that prodigal son gift was kind of nice, but it's kind of funny. You notice Lee Jae-myung, he's not very good at English. And so he's not a good negotiator. He's not strong on the world stage because the lingua franca is English. And if a world leader cannot speak English well, yeah, they just inherently are viewed as weak. That's just unfortunate. And as someone who, yes, I agree that Koreans should use less English in their branding and in their everyday vocabulary, having your leader know English and be able to communicate in English well is a must. It's a must because it is through communications that you establish diplomatic relations, you pass trade deals, treaties, peace agreements. Communication. And so if you cannot communicate on the world stage, yeah, you're going to be seen as weak. That's why you see all the footage of Lee Jae-myung at these global summits. I think it was the G7 summit recently, or last year. He was just standing there. He was just like looking around because no one was talking to him because he can't speak in English. He can't communicate. He's so bad. He needs a translator everywhere he goes. That's the same thing with Hwan Kyo-an, who is the leader of the Freedom and Innovation Party that just launched this past year in Korea. And I don't like what he's doing because he's fracturing the base and he is taking votes away from the People Power Party, which is the only bulwark against left-wing domination throughout the entire Korean country. But he too cannot speak a lick of English. He always needs a translator. So that when he goes to CPAC or goes to America, he just needs a translator all the time. It's like, no, like you should be able to speak English as a leader if you're trying to represent Korea on the world stage. That's why the strongest leaders all know English. Now, you might say, oh, but Xi Jinping doesn't know English. Yeah, China's different. Okay, China literally has 1.4 billion people. They have so much economic leverage as well because most of America's manufacturing happens in China. So that's a whole different thing. And plus, he's basically a king in China. And they're also a global superpower. But if you want to get to that point, I do believe that you have to, especially with matters like this, you have to be able to speak English. Now, that being said, here's an article that I want to talk about. So Lee Jae-myung he actually gave a speech during Mass at the Vatican now, in Rome. And I find that to be, I don't know how I feel about that. Of course, I am not against world leaders or politicians coming and giving a few remarks in a church service. But this is Mass. Like, this is different. Catholic Mass is a lot more reverent than the normal, typical evangelical Protestant worship service. And so having Lee Jae-myung give remarks and give a speech, it wasn't just like remarks, but it was a speech during Holy Mass where Catholics celebrate and worship Christ. A little strange. On top of that, he's not even Catholic. He's Protestant. Of course, we all know that's not true, but like, he's Protestant. He says he's Christian. So I find this to be distasteful. That being said, he talked about the ember of hope of dialogue with North Korea. He's saying that, we need to achieve peace in North Korea. So this is him speaking at the Mass in the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls of Rome. And so let's just read this a little bit here. So Lee Jae-myung reaffirmed his commitment to establishing a lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula on Sunday, saying that the ember of hope for dialogue and cooperation with Pyongyang still exists. Lee made the remarks during a speech at a special mass held at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome, celebrated by South Korea-born Cardinal Lazaro Yu Hung-sik, probably. And that's English. I don't know what it is in Korean, but probably Hung-sik. Yu Hung-sik. He is visiting Italy as part of his first European trip since taking office in June last year. Lee is scheduled to visit the Holy See for an audience with Pope Leo XIV on Monday. The remarks came ahead of the 26th anniversary of the June 15 North-South Joint Declaration, calling a historical event. Keep going down. A new door of hope for peace on the Korean Peninsula was opened. Lee said, "I am convinced that the Ember of Hope is still alive." Lee has pursued a series of confidence-building measures aimed at easing tension with the North since taking office in June last year. In a speech, he cited steps such as restricting activist groups from sending anti-North Korean propaganda leaflets across the border and suspending loudspeaker broadcasts aimed at the North. Lee also reiterated that Seoul does not seek absorption, unification, or unilateral competition between the two systems. In order to establish a sustainable peace system, I intend to do everything I can. North Korea has shown little interest in Seoul's overtures and recently revised its constitution to remove references to reunification with South Korea. Pyongyang has also continued to develop its nuclear and ballistic missile programs in the face of international sanctions and calls for denuclearization. Last week, Lee and the leaders of the EU issued a joint statement condemning North Korea's military cooperation with Russia and expressing grave concern over Pyongyang's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Seoul and Washington also reaffirmed the shared goal of denuclearizing North Korea at a meeting of the bilateral nuclear consultative group on Thursday in Seoul. On Sunday, the North's foreign ministry rejected the idea of denuclearization, calling it an issue that has been finally and irreversibly concluded. Lee is also slated to attend the G7 Group of Seven summit in France, which runs from Monday through Wednesday. Okay, so lots to say there. So essentially, what we have is right now Lee Jae-myung enlisting the aid of the Pope Leo XIV, in hopes of helping to reunify the two Koreas, or not even reunify, but have peace talks with the two Koreas. Now, a few things. One, Christianity is growing in North Korea, and increasingly there are churches that are allowed to worship, but the Catholic Church in Korea is not submitted to Rome. And so Rome doesn't actually hold much leverage over North Korea, very much. Now, Lee Jae-myung was saying that maybe he hopes for the Pope to visit North Korea, which would be kind of crazy. And I know that he holds a lot of soft power because as the Pope and as the leader of the Catholic Church, where there's like 2 billion Catholics in the world, yeah, he holds a lot of power because there's a lot of people who submit to him as the proposed vicar of Christ and the leader of the Catholic Church. But in North Korea specifically, yeah, it won't really, I don't think it's going to sway as much. And on top of that, the Pope doesn't hold much political power and sway. Most of what the Pope does truly is just kind of pontificate about world affairs and say, we should love, we should have compassion, we should seek peace. War is bad. It's like, okay, Holy Father, we get it. But it doesn't really change much, because most countries aren't submitted truly to Rome anymore like they used to be. And it's funny because popes of the past, they used to be like, yeah, let's declare war and go on crusades against the Ottoman Empire and ward off all of these foreign invaders and the infidels. We will destroy them because they are an enemy of Christendom. That's the popes of the past, 500 years ago. Now, popes today, war is bad. Be compassionate. Stop deporting illegals. That's bad. And I know there might be Catholics who see that and say that that's in poor taste, but it's a reality. It's a reality. If you look at the popes of the past versus the popes of present day, yeah, it's you cannot say that they are strong. And so they don't hold much power. They don't hold much weight in world affairs anymore. And so to enlist the help of the Pope for peace talks on the Korean Peninsula, I do think it's not really a fruitful endeavor. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of Catholics in Korea, so it is obviously, I would say overall a good thing that the president of Korea goes and meets with the Pope. But what Koreans need to do is we need to reorient and kind of rethink our North Korean strategy, where the left in Korea is way too soft on North Korea with their sunshine policy. And they're like, yeah, let's give them aid, let's give them gifts, let's be nice to them so that they'll they'll be softened. It's like, no, that's not literally, that's not even a concept in the minds of the Kim regime and North Korean officials. They're not thinking, wow, if they're nice to us, maybe they're not so bad. No, that's not how they're thinking. Can you wake up? The left always lives in this very real, like, idealistic dream world. That's like, as long as we're nice, we'll all get along. It's like, okay, that's not the world that we live in. That's not even moderately the headspace of Kim Jong-un. That being said, the right is, I think, to a fault and immaturely too antagonistic against North Korea. And what I mean by that is they're like, North Korea is our arch nemesis. We're still at war against them. I'm like, oh yeah, that's technically true because we still haven't signed a peace treaty and a peace agreement. We only signed an armistice. But then what's the solution to that? What's the solution? Are you going to attack North Korea? South Korea doesn't have nukes. North Korea does. You want North Korea, the possibility of North Korea dropping a nuke on South Korea? Are you kidding me? Why? And like, so it's like, okay, let's take military action against North Korea. No, like that's suicide. That's suicide for South Korea. Because yes, possibly America sends troops to defend South Korea. But ultimately, North Korea 2 years ago signed a mutual defense pact with Russia, where if North Korea is invaded and is the defending force and the defending party, yeah, Russia will commit troops to defend and help North Korea. But that if North Korea is the aggressor, Russia says that we will not help you. And on top of that, North Korea has revised its constitution to say we have no interest in reunifying with South Korea. So right now, the head space of Kim Jong-un is internal. He just wants to develop North Korea. Like we talked about previously on this program in a previous episode, he wants to develop North Korea. His interests are not imperialistic, global. It is not to take over South Korea. It's vastly different actually from China. But if South Korea were to attack North Korea, yeah, you'd have Russia. You have to go to war against Russia, North Korea, and China, possibly. It's that you're not. Why would you do that? And no serious Korean president is gonna do that. So then what's the solution? Well, the solution is not military action to destroy North Korea because that's not gonna happen. But at the same time, there is really no threat, realistically, of North Korea invading South Korea because they've made it very clear that they've taken out their objectives to invade South Korea. They won't invade South Korea because of their pact with Russia. So what's the solution? Well, I think the solution is a little more towards the middle where you don't have to acquiesce. You don't have to be weak and say, oh yeah, North Korea, we'll just be nice to you. No, be strong. Be strong, be serious, be sovereign. But at the same time, yes, you should want to work towards a peace deal. That's the whole point, right? You should want a peace deal. That's one of the primary political objectives in terms of foreign policy for South Korea. You need to move towards a peace deal. And then after that, try to figure out reunification. Because why? Because North Koreans, South Koreans, we are still one people. We are one Korea. We are of the same lineage and ancestry and more. We share more history than we do apart. Most Koreans right now identify themselves when it comes to politics from the political discourse of the past 70, 80 years. But we have thousands of years of shared history. Why would you dismiss that? You cannot dismiss that. So many people who live in South Korea today are from the North or have North Korean heritage. I do. I'm half North Korean. Not that like, I came from North Korea, but like my grandparents were born and raised in North Korea, and then they fled during the Korean War. I'm half North Korean. It is part of our heritage. We should actually want a reunification of the two Koreas, not under communist rule, not acquiescing to North Korea, but that's what we should at least try to work towards, and a peace deal, a genuine peace deal. Now, how can we achieve a peace deal? Well, think about it. Imagine if Trump had a summit in North Korea. Like, imagine the balls. Like, he's the only president in American history who stepped foot in North Korea by himself. why couldn't you do a peace summit in North Korea? But also, why couldn't you also have Russia act as a mediator for peace between the Korean Peninsula? Why does it always have to be someone else? Can't it be Russia? Of course, we want America involved because America's America. All the peace deals and peace treaties signed throughout the world, always America's involved. For example, the Abraham Accords that happened. Because of the Abraham Accords, now there's a lot of Middle Eastern Muslim countries that are friendly or at least not antagonistic against Israel. Look at that. We can achieve peace. And so we have Trump involved, but why can't we also have Russia as a mediator? North Korea trusts Russia, but is Russia communist? No. Does Russia pose a threat to South Korea? No, they're actually pretty neutral. But then you think about it, even strategically and economically, South Korea imports over 70% of their oil from the Middle East through the Strait of Hormuz. First of all, why can't we import from America? It's like the same distance from over the Pacific versus getting from the Middle East through the Strait of Hormuz all the way to Korea. But you should be importing oil from America. But think about it. Russia is right there. Russia is literally right there. Why can't South Koreans and the South Korean government think about importing oil from Russia? Why can't Russia be a strategic partner economically? Of course it can. So with all those avenues, actually, Russia can serve as a mediator between North and South Korea on the Korean Peninsula, especially because North Korea trusts Russia. But you think that Lee Jae-myung having a declaration in the EU saying, oh, we don't like your military cooperation with Russia, you think that's going to change North Korea? You think that's going to change Kim Jong-un's mind? No. Kim Jong-un hates the West. Kim Jong-un hates Europe and Western influence. So if we should want genuine peace on the Korean Peninsula. And to achieve that, we also have to think about who can we use and who can help serve as a mediator between the two Koreas. And I do believe that Russia can. I'm so tired of the whole, Russia hoax. We saw that during the first Trump administration. And, Russian spies. Like, give me a break, dude. Like, can we move on from that? We are not in the Cold War anymore. There are different interests, different forms of governance for all these different countries, and especially for the global superpowers. We should want peace on the Korean Peninsula and by whatever means. But we should talk about this stuff, and Lee Jae-myung should be moving towards that. Instead, he's just doing a campaign in Europe, talking to the Pope and saying, Pope, please help us. It's like he's not going to do anything, okay? The Pope doesn't opine on political matters. He just says, peace. War is bad. Have compassion. That's it. But he's not going to go in and be like, let's have a peace agreement. Like, no, you need political leaders to do so. You need strong political leaders. And on top of that, why Trump would be such an effective mediator on top of Russia, because North Korea trusts Russia, is because Kim Jong-un respects Russia. Kim Jong-un, yes, does respect Russia, respects Trump. And Trump himself said in interviews too that he's like, okay, I am interested in meeting Kim Jong-un again and trying to get peace on the Korean Peninsula. Can you imagine if Trump achieved peace on the Korean Peninsula? That'd be incredible. But I think a peace summit between Russia, North Korea, South Korea, and America would be highly effective. It would be highly effective. That's what we need to move towards. We need genuine policies. We need genuine solutions in order to rectify the North Korean, South Korean hostilities. So yes, they are still objectively an enemy, but we need to get peace on the Korean Peninsula. So you can't just keep saying, we hate North Korea, we hate North Korea, we hate North Korea, they're our enemy, without actually thinking about genuine solutions to move forward. No, move towards and effectuate. And that's what the People Power Party needs to do. But unfortunately, they're not. Like they have no solutions. They have no actually policy prescriptions for all of these problems, domestically and also foreign policy-wise. Now, all this being said, last thing I'll say about this is that this is just a distraction. This is a distraction from Lee Jae-myung's absolute blunder with the National Election Commission, with the ballot shortages that we've talked about. Look at this. 70.4% of Koreans are in favor of dissolving the NEC. That's insane. That's insane. Lee Jae-myung's approval ratings have plummeted. This is an absolute PR disaster for the current administration. And so what is he going to do? I want peace on the North Korean Peninsula. Let's talk to the Pope. Look how religious I am. Your solutions suck. Your solutions for peace on the Korean Peninsula with North Korea, it sucks. The DPK doesn't actually have genuine solutions. Lee Jae-myung has no solutions. He's a political dolt. He doesn't understand what it takes to be strong on the world stage and push through genuine solutions and policies that will achieve peace. He doesn't understand how North Korea thinks. This is just a distraction. This is really all distraction. And he's so glad. He is so happy that this Europe trip coincided with the ballot shortage controversy because it allows him to escape and of responsibility and absolve himself from all responsibility. That's what it is at the end of the day. That's why Korean media keeps pushing this. Oh, look how great Lee Jae-myung is in Europe. Wow, he's so nice. He's giving a speech at a holy mass and he's meeting with the Pope. Yeah, no, that's just not going to fly. People are tired. People are tired of it. We see through your lies. But all that being said, I do hope that in Korea they're able to think about genuine solutions instead of just talking about the problems, because so much of Korean politics is defined by opposition to the other party, opposition to certain ideologies, and that's all good. That's all needed. But you need to also think about, what are you for? Like, what policies are you for? What solutions are you advocating for? What is your platform? What are actual changes you'll make in Korean society and also abroad that will help the Korean people and bolster Korean national interests? What are those solutions? Well, I don't really see much, and there's not many solutions. And even the people on the ground, they talk about, this person did that. Are you stupid? This person, I hate this person. This person needs to get out. Impeach. But they don't focus on solutions, and we need to focus on solutions. That's what I try to do on the show. I'm like, okay, here's the problem, but then here's the solution. Like, I don't want to just point out hypocrisy and problems and societal ills, but I want to show you the solution. Like I said with the LGBTQ, the solution is Christ, but it's also having pro-family policies and pro-family propaganda, truly. And they're hammering that messaging home. To have schools not teach this stuff anymore. Now, these are all genuine policy solutions. For this, like, genuine policy solution for peace on the Korean Peninsula, yeah, a peace summit. Maybe enlist the aid of Russia to be a peace mediator. Like, these are all things that we should talk about and work through. Unfortunately, it's like you propose a solution, it's like they accuse you of all different kinds of names or being a spy. It's like, okay, dude. Like, do you want change or not? Do you want solutions or not? That is my focus, and we try to do that on this show. And that's it for our Korea segment. Let's talk about the World Cup. Okay, a lot of things happening on the World Cup, in the World Cup. By the way, great performances from Korea. Korea doing very well against Czechia. Japan tying with Netherlands. Of course, we had America completely blow out Paraguay. Paraguay? Where even is that? Oh, don't get mad. I'm not racist. They blew them out. The most amount of goals that America scored in a World Cup game ever in history. Great stuff. Patriots are winning. A lot of great things happening. We love to see it. World Cup's fun. I'm not a huge soccer guy, but I do enjoy cheering on my teams during the World Cup and the Olympics. Now, all that being said, we had this famous story of a Mexican trade group leader. He was fired after a racist gesture during the World Cup match. Now, you guys have probably seen this. It has amassed tens and hundreds of millions of views. And yeah, so it's basically, well, let's just play the video. We'll play the video, then this is the original video that went crazy viral. So yeah. So in Korean it says 제가 너무 예민한 건지 봐주세요. So it's like, tell me if I'm being too sensitive. In English it says POV when you experience racism at the World Cup. It's an influencer. She has a lot of followers. She has like millions of followers throughout all platforms. InnoCat. So influencer, Korean influencer InnoCat. Her whole persona is being like a cute cat, basically. She's a cute girl. I wouldn't say the pinnacle of Korean beauty, but she's cute. Does this cat? She has like cat ears and everything. She's at the World Cup. She's waving and she's saying fans. And then there's a Mexican guy who makes squint eyes. And then so we learned that he is a trade group leader. He's a trade group leader, and this happened obviously at the World Cup game in Jalisco, Mexico. And he's going to be removed from office after the clip went viral. So the influencer InnoCat, Yoon Sujin, has his nearly 9 million combined followers on TikTok and YouTube, was filming herself celebrating South Korea's opening World Cup ceremony against Czechia Thursday when College of Topographic and Geomatic Engineers of Jalisco president Ulysses Bernal made the gesture behind her. So that's what happened. I'm sure you guys have all seen this. And my take is simple. You guys already know my take. I made a video about this. It's not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. Do I think, was it inappropriate? Should he have not done it with cameras and being recorded by an influencer? Yeah, maybe it wasn't the best thing to do. But it is not that big of a deal. Seriously, like objectively, it is harmless. Things like this only hold power if you let it hold power over you. Objectively, how is a man in good spirits, spur of the moment, he's having a good time, doing squint eyes, how does that hurt you? Like genuinely, how does it hurt you? It doesn't. It doesn't. You might be offended, but you can choose what to be offended by. I get thousands upon thousands of vitriolic hatred from people online, from liberals online, from black community, Indians in India, and Southeast Asians in Indonesia. And I get hatred from LGBTQ and feminists. I get hatred from every single group, every single third world group, every single leftist group. I get hate all over the place. They say the most nasty, vitriolic things that are literally, objectively, and in every metric worse than a guy laughing and doing squint eyes. And it wasn't even bad. There was no malice behind it, right? Like, you can tell when there's malice behind racism or racist jokes. You can tell. But there was no malice behind it. He's just having fun, spur of the moment's World Cup game. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying it's not that big of a deal. But that is objectively harmless. It is objectively harmless. You don't have to be a victim. You don't have to be so sensitive. It is not that big of a deal. You will not be hurt by this. Genuinely. It's only you can control. You can't control what other people say. You can't control what other people do. But what you can control is your own conscience. It's your own mind. How much you allow these racist jokes, which are, again, done in jest. It's not even super, like, it wasn't even malicious. He wasn't even being super hateful about it. Only you control how that affects you. Don't let it affect you. Now, the response has been ridiculous. He should not have been fired. It's not a fireable offense. If he beat up this woman, fire him. If he assaulted her, fire him. If you're right, sure. Yeah, cancel him, fire him, all that stuff. Because that's objective harm. That is objective instances of harm, and we shouldn't tolerate that in society. But for have millions upon millions of people dox this guy and have him fired and ruin his life? Why? Like, seriously, why? He made a simple mistake, if you want to call it that, and move on. Move on. But they had to destroy his life. Destroy it. Meanwhile, like I said, people say, oh, you're just deflecting towards the black community. I'm just showing you clear examples of black people saying publicly, and these videos aren't niche, they're all over the place, and they go viral as well. You have black people say, yeah, I'm going to steal from Asian businesses. F them Koreans. They're janky, blah, 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 blah. Say genuine, malicious things with vitriolic hatred behind their words. They create AI images of them pissing on a dead white boy's grave. They call to hate Asians more. They call us, they say literally in their own words, chinks. We need to hurt these chinks. Oh, they don't have enough Asian hate. We need to start more Asian hate. These are all viral posts. No backlash. They're not fired. Nothing happens to them. Like, objectively, if you're going to cancel and destroy someone's life and dox someone, it is that. But they don't do that. And instead, this guy who did a squinty eyes in jest, he gets his life ruined. Dude, even with my non-Asian friends, I always do this. Like, oh, like, it's not that big of a deal. And people say, oh, but the difference is you guys are friends. This is a stranger. So what? So what? I've been to South America. I've been to Latin America. I've seen people do this to me. You know what my response is? It's not to dox them and destroy their lives. It's like, okay, that's funny, whatever. Move on. Move on. It is so unserious. You are such unserious people if you're so offended by this. And then you will feel nothing. You will feel no amount of outrage when Koreans are targeted and stabbed to death and shot in the face for no reason. Seriously, people say that's deflection. No, it's not deflection. I want to wake you up out of your delusion and trance. You are living in cuckoo world right now. That your outrage is only reserved for harmless incidents like this versus actual instances of harm you feel nothing? Do you not see how perverted your worldview is? Do you not see how messed up your moral compass is? That you have so much outrage and you are furious about a Mexican man doing this, then when criminals are shooting and killing Asians, like literally killing a pregnant Korean mother in Seattle, and then the criminal is found not guilty by reason of insanity, you feel nothing about that? Like seriously, like you need to reorder your priorities. You need to wake up. You're not a serious person if you're more angered by this than actual murder. You're more angered by this, squinty eyes, than rape. That makes no sense. That makes absolute no sense. Your moral priorities are all out of whack. Your words hold no moral weight. And last thing I'll say about this, because this Mexican thing it's just so out of proportion. I can't even believe that I'm, dedicating time into talking about this, because it's such an unserious thing to not get so seriously caught up in. But this was all enabled by simps. Of course, women are going to be angered by this. That's typically what they do, because women are a lot more emotional and sensitive. The simps are the ones who enabled this. The simps were like, we're so sorry for that Mexican. By the way, that's actually a good point that, at least Mexicans self-police, which is very different than a certain ghetto community in America who refuses to self-police. They actually enable and excuse bad behavior. They actually self-police, which isn't a bad thing, but it's all these Mexican simps, man. It is all these third worldist simps and just simps online saying, how dare you? Poor girl. It's because she's cute. She's a cute Korean girl, cute Korean influencer. Poor her. I get that sentiment. My initial reaction also was like, oh man, like poor girl. She's by herself as an influencer in Mexico, in a foreign country. Maybe she felt attacked. Okay, I can sympathize with that. But then they're like, oh, we're going to destroy his life. Protect her, protect her, protect. Bro, like what are we doing here? Stop simping. Stop simping. Think with your head, please. Stop letting your emotions get to the best of you. And that's what they do. People don't think about what is the appropriate amount of outrage to have. And that's why you're a sheep. If you're outright outraged by this and you have no outrage for any sort of actual genuine acts of harm, murder, rape, brutal assaults, then yeah, you're a sheep. You're an NPC. You actually have no beliefs or convictions. You just do. You just get mad when you're told to get mad. That's what it is. You're a sheep. You can't claim to have original thought or be an independent person if you get mad only when you're told to get mad, and you have immense outrage over things that are harmless versus actual harmful incidents. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point. How many times have I said that? You're not a serious person. You're a sheep. You're an NPC. Isn't this the greatest proof that mass democracy does not work and self-governance, by and large, doesn't work? Why? Because people are dumb. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is dumb, and I'm not being pretentious like, oh, I know so much better than everyone. But a conversation with the average voter, and just this instance in and of itself, you can see most people don't even know how to think about these issues clearly. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. If everyone was politically savvy and thinking about politics and culture all the time, then we wouldn't have engineers, we wouldn't have the builders, we wouldn't have innovators and scientists and architects, we wouldn't have painters and sculptors and construction workers who are experts in that, and woodworkers, carpenters. We wouldn't have software engineers. Like, not everyone can be politically minded. That's fine. But the thing is, when you start convincing people that they are politically minded and their voice matters when they know nothing about politics and they don't know how to think about issues clearly on the micro and macro scale about politics and culture and society, yeah, you're going to have ruin and disorder and chaos in society where people are more mad about a harmless guy just in the spur of the moment doing a squinty eye thing versus a criminal shooting a Korean mother in the face. Hello? Like, where was the outrage for Irina Zaruska? Only the right was crying, like literally crying about it and raising outrage for it. Because why? The Carlos Brown guy, whatever his name was, he targeted her, killed her, stabbed her in the neck unprovoked, and then she said after that, I got that white girl. I got that white girl. It was a racist motivated attack. It was a racially motivated attack. Clear instance of actual racism and stabbing her in the neck, and the same people who were outraged about this Mexican video felt nothing about that. So this is why I don't take liberals seriously. Your words mean nothing because I've seen what makes you cheer. So this is really a nothing burger in my opinion. And then everyone in my comments who are like defending her and saying like, oh, you're wrong. How could you be so heartless? It's like, dude, stop simping. Especially the guys. Please, have some self-respect. Stop simping. The reason why we're in this place is because the simps enable this kind of like disproportional and asymmetrical outrage over nothing. Stop simping. Please, stop simping. But all that being said, Mexican controversy, not that big of a deal in my opinion. And I think honestly, what I love about the World Cup is, you guys have seen it if you follow me on Twitter and on X, it's like the cultural exchange happening between Koreans and Mexicans. I want to focus on that. I think that's better. That's what we should be focusing on a little more on the World Cup. Just two cultures, two peoples coming together, having a good time, enjoying each other. And last thing I'll say, Mexicans, they say, what is it? Coreano, hermano, ya eres mexicano, right? It's like, oh, Korean, my brother, you're already Mexican, right? It's just like, okay, dude, like Koreans, well, we vibe and have a good time. That's what I like to do. That's my temperament. I focus on problems, but I also like to highlight good times that we have. Moving on to our next segment, we're talking about Japan. Now, this went crazy viral. I posted a video juxtaposing. This is from Asian Dawn, by the way. Shout out to Asian Dawn. Great account on X. Yeah, this video juxtaposing Japan fans versus Knicks fans. So you see here, Japan fans at the World Cup, they have trash bags that they're bringing and they're cleaning up. Not only their own trash, but other people's trash. Meanwhile, how did Knicks fans celebrate? They beat each other up. Look at this. When you juxtapose two contrastingly different cultures, it is so unbelievably clear the reality of what we all know. Some cultures are better than others. Not all cultures are created equal. We all know this. Everyone knows this. This is why, by the way, no one is clamoring to move to African countries or third world countries, but everyone's clamoring to move to West and Eastern countries today. Everyone wants to move to Korea, Japan. Everyone wants to move to America or UK. Why? Why? Because we all know objectively that these cultures are better than the third world cultures. It's not racist. It's reality. The third world still has rape gangs constantly going, like, that's normalized. They have slavery. They run over people with their vehicles and feel nothing about it. Nothing happens. It's just third world behavior exists for a reason. And when you import the third world, you'll become the third world. So Japan, if you're wondering, where did they get these trash bags? Well, it's like blue trash bags where they actually used as noise things. So you know, like the inflatable thing that people have for World Cup and like dung 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 dung. They use it to generate noise and cheer. They inflate it. And then after that, they use it to clean up the trash of not only themselves, but their strangers and other fans around them. Look at this video right here. So these are all trash bags. These are all trash bags. All the blue stuff you see them waving, those are all trash bags that they use to cheer on their team. And then they use it after to clean up trash. This is what honor, selflessness, decorum, respect, and dignity look like. Obviously, Japanese culture is far superior to any other culture. Do we have the video of juxtaposing it with Morocco fans? I think we have it right here. Yeah, look at this. Look at this photo. This is Moroccans after the World Cup versus the Japanese after the World Cup. There are obviously a lot of liberals online now trying to counter-signal this and say, oh, they're just doing it for optics. They're just trying to do it to make themselves look better. Okay. So? Who cares about their motives? They're cleaning up trash. Meanwhile, you have hooligans beating each other up on the streets, burning their city to the ground when their sports team wins. What? Like, do you guys now understand what I'm talking about? Where they have disproportionate outrage and focus over things that don't matter and actual good things, they're mad about it, versus criminal behavior, low IQ behavior, violence, crime. They feel nothing about it. They excuse it, even celebrate it. Look at the Japanese locker room right here. This is before, when they're using it, and then after. Just pristine cleanness. Pristine cleanness. This is when no one was watching. The locker room, when no one was watching. I don't think the Japanese team was briefed, hey, clean up the locker room after you're done because the media is going to take pictures, so make sure that we look good as Japan. Like, you really think that they're doing that meanwhile they're trying to win a game? No. This is why people love Korea as well. You go to Korea, Koreans clean up after themselves. There's no trash on the streets. Like in America, a lot of restaurants and just go to an American food court, okay? Go to an American food court and tell me how much trash and food and disgusting debris is left behind on a table from the person behind you, from the person before you. Just low IQ, trashy, low trust behavior. I'm not saying Americans are like that. I'm saying the lowest common denominator in America is like that. And they incentivize that kind of behavior and excuse it. And if you say anything about it, you're a hateful person. But you go to Korea, even in Koreans today here in America, you go to a Korean food court, they're cleaning up after themselves. They're wiping down the table. Make sure that the table is clean so that the person who uses it after them, you show some respect for them. It's called etiquette. I know that's foreign to the third world and a lot of third worlders and a lot of members of the so-called scholarly community who are just, ghetto and thugs. Yes, that's the behavior that, yes, is objectively better than beating each other up, gangbanging, being ratchet in public and twerking on top of cars. How do you even compare the two? How do you even say with a clear mind that all cultures are equal? They're just different. No, some cultures are better. They're better. And I'm not saying it's inherently a racial thing per se, although I do think that's a component, because you had this player, Jameis Winston, also join in on the cleanup with Japanese. So he joined in on the cleanup. It's not this video, it's the other video, I think. Oh, no, is it this video? Oh, yeah, right there. Yeah, exactly. So he's also cleaning up. And you see these white people too. They're cleaning up as well. Because why? Good behavior begets good behavior. Because all people have a conscience. And yes, it might be dulled because of repeated nonsense. But good behavior begets good behavior, but also sinful behavior, destructive behavior begets sinful, destructive behavior. Now, Jameis Winston, he's actually a Christian. Look at this. He has consistently spoken about his Christian faith as the foundation of his life. Raised in a Southern Baptist environment, he described his faith as not as a side of his identity, but as its center. My identity is never in football, but in Christ. Great. Based. We love this patriot, this Christian brother in Christ. So don't tell me that all cultures and values are the same. Really? A Christian brother is following along and partaking alongside Japanese people, cleaning up trash at the World Cup after the game. Like Christian values redeems all peoples and all cultures. That's what I truly believe. But I think it is so poignant to say that not all cultures are the same. Japanese culture is objectively superior to other cultures, maybe to Pakistani Islamic culture, to North African culture, to urban black community culture. Do you ever see, groups of young Japanese teens going around looting and beating up the elderly? Meanwhile, we see video after video after video after video of black teens going around and randomly assaulting the elderly, older couples, even young kids. And it's normalized. And you say anything about it, we're a hateful person. Well, everyone's sick of it. No one cares anymore. We want our society back. We want decorum. We want clean streets. We want order in society. You cannot gaslight us any further. So yes, the Japanese culture is inherently better. It's superior. And we make no apologies for that. It just is. It just is. What other culture goes around cleaning up their trash and other people's trash after a game? Most people just leave it around. We love that. We love that. And that's why so many people on the internet right now, especially right-wingers, are saying, I would gladly deport every single third world immigrant in America if it meant that we could import thousands of Japanese. Because it's not about being blindly xenophobic. Like, liberals are so reductionist, and they completely strawman and mischaracterize every single one of our arguments. And that's the only thing they can do, because they have no argument. So they lie. They attack caricatures of what they think are right-wing arguments. But there's tons of right-wingers saying, oh yeah, let's bring in the Japanese instead. Let's have thousands of them instead. This is why, by the way, the right wing almost never complains about Korean or Japanese immigrants. Because, why? We're good members of society. We uphold decorum. We're respectful. We work hard. We study hard. We're smart. We don't cause crime and chaos and degeneracy in public constantly. But it's not about xenophobia. Right? It's about preserving society and having a society. Having nice things in your country. That's all people want. That's all right-wingers want. They want a country. They want their home back. And if you're an immigrant, you should assimilate. That's what they want. That's all they want. Yet we can't seem to do that. And we can't even hold that standard anymore because it's hateful. So, the Japanese, truly great. We always say that Japan is America's greatest ally. I will say in extension, and by extension, South Korea as well, East Asians, Koreans and Japanese, America's greatest allies. We're great. I think we have a lot in common, and I think there's a lot to fight for in terms of the fight for our civilization and preserving our countries. Last thing I'll say, I think this is a very touchy subject. So if you watch the Japanese game, there's a lot of people talking about how the goalkeeper is black. So right here, Zion Suzuki, he is a half black, half Ghanaian, and half Japanese soccer player. He's the goalkeeper for the national Japanese soccer team. Now, I do believe he was born in Newark, New Jersey. And yeah, great goalkeeper. Everyone was raving about how good he is as a goalkeeper. But I do want to touch on this issue of ethnicity and national identity. Now, there's a liberal right here who says this guy, Alonzo Germanandi. Japan's goalkeeper, Zion Suzuki, must be destroying the minds of a lot of racists. Turns out the U.S.-born son of a Ghanaian and a Japanese who grows up in Japan is, after all, Japanese. Now, what do we all mean by this? I think it's really important to clarify all of our terms when we're talking about ethnicity and nationality, our personal identity. Because here's one thing I'll say about, because we have to define our terms or else we don't know what we're talking about. But I think Zion Suzuki actually is a good example of an immigrant who assimilates and adopts the culture. And so right here, we all know that he's half Japanese. So his mother is Japanese, but his father is Ghanaian. And his family relocated to Japan when he was very little, but he used what? His mother's surname. Now, as conservatives, we all believe that children should take their father's surname. I think that's appropriate, but he chose, and they chose to use his mother's surname, not his father's surname, because of integration, for integration purposes. Since they were moving permanently to Japan, it only made sense to use that surname. That's actually a good thing. That is actually a good thing. If you're an immigrant who moves and wants to settle down, and you need to adopt the customs, the language, the culture, everything about that country, about your host country. If you say to do that in America, they call you racist, but that's what's needed. That's the bare minimum. In Japan, family registration and daily life strongly favor Japanese surnames for smoother integration, schooling, legal matters, and obtaining affirming Japanese citizenship. If they remained in the U.S. or moved to Ghana, he would have used his father's surname, I assume. He went through Urawa Red Diamonds Academy, blah, blah, blah. He's one goalkeeper. Many clubs are monitoring. He was linked to Manchester United at some point, and I hope he gets a big move shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, Zion Suzuki. So that's his background. And that is objectively a good thing. Like, as a foreigner, you should not go to a different country and then demand that everyone acquiesce to you. Everyone cater to your needs. And that's what increasingly foreigners are doing in Japan. You see, that's why a lot of Muslims and Indians are becoming viewed very unfavorably in Japan because they have their festivals and they're being really rowdy and obnoxious in public. They do their prayer calls and they do the little, like, you know, the thing that the Muslims do. What do they do? Like you know, they do the little Muslim chant in public and are disruptive. Where in Japan is a very polite society. So they don't like that, and they don't change their names. They just keep it complicated, and then they call you hateful if you can't pronounce their name correctly. Yeah, it's just so obnoxious. People hate that kind of behavior. That's why anti-immigration sentiment is rising. But Zion Suzuki is actually a good example of good integration, proper assimilation. Where, yeah, he is half Japanese, but he's not full Japanese. And by all intents, he looks more black than he does Japanese. But they made the conscious decision to use his mother's surname so that he can integrate better into Japanese society. I think that's a good thing. Now, I want to touch on what is national identity and ethnicity. And this is something that we all need to understand. Now, I want to pull up this picture right here. The people who say that you can't be black Japanese are going to be mad. Japan's goalkeeper is black. Okay. First of all, yes, these are all straw man arguments, right? Like they always do that with the game Assassin's Creed Shadows, where they're like, oh yeah, look at the black samurai. And everyone was mad about it because, you know, Japanese aren't black. We all know this. But this person is saying, oh yeah, look at the black Japanese. Black people can be Japanese. And they never do this other way around, by the way. If a white person's like, I'm Nigerian and lives in Nigeria, they call him a colonizer and to get out. No, you're not Nigerian. If I say as a Korean, you know, I'm going to go to, let's say I go to India. I'm like, I'm Indian. They're not going to be like, no, you're not Indian. You're Korean. You're different. There's clearly something different about you. And everyone knows this. So if you look at this picture of the national soccer team of Japan. Like, don't be obtuse. Don't intentionally be obtuse. You look at this picture, you understand what is different. Everyone knows, aside from the goalkeeper jersey being different, like, you know, there's one person who is different who looks unlike all the other players. And it is Zion Suzuki. He's different. Everyone knows he's different. People try to gaslight you that not to notice that he's different, but he is different. He is different. To deny this reality is to deny reality itself, but it is also to completely subvert preserving your own national heritage and identity. Now, this is something that people need to understand. Nations are not just political entities. They're not just plots of lands with borders. Nations are historical ancestral communities. Nations are a body of people who share ancestry and culture. That's what heritage is. That's what nationhood was traditionally always understood as. But nations are historical communities descended from common ancestors. That's what it is. That is the definition. And this is important to preserve this. Why? Because we all know that shared ancestry results in higher social cohesion, long-term trust, sense of extended kinship. This is why when a Korean sees another Korean in America, they have an intrinsic bond that's already formed because they're, hey, like, you're one of me. You come from where I come from. This is a part of who we are. And this also results in higher trust societies. Why? Because you can trust each other. You have a certain degree of understanding. Hey, I know where you come from. You're one of my people. And so that is something to understand, because all these studies done show that multiculturalism and increased diversity actually results in lower community activity, lower community giving, lower charitable giving, low trust. That's what it results in. Because if you don't know your neighbors, if you don't come from the same heritage and the same background, yes, there's going to be something that is different about each other. You don't have anything shared. And people say diversity is a strength. No, it's not. Unity is a strength. But we cannot unify over differences. That makes no sense. How are you supposed to unify over differences? You're different, I'm different, so we're going to unify over that? You like ramen, I like burgers. Let's unify over that. How does that make any sense? No. Communities form over shared interests. You see this online, right? You have the gaming community, and then you have niche gaming communities. You have the Zelda community, you have the Mario community, you have the Nintendo community, you have the Sonic community. You form communities over shared interests. That's why you have the Korean American community and then the Black American community. And you have all these different communities because you form communities over shared interests. Why do you have basketball community online? You have the right wing because there are shared interests that we share that forms community, and that's how we are. That's a strength. Insofar as we try to advocate for certain things, certain causes, but diversity is not a strength. It's actually something that is destabilizing and very harmful. Origin immigrant? Yeah, I am, but I understand this. I understand this. It does destabilize a community, and it doesn't allow for the proliferation and handing down of heritage. And so when ancestry becomes irrelevant, national identity can gradually transform into a purely administrative category. Like, truly. So we have to understand, yes, people say that there's a difference between ethnicity and nationality, but that is a modern concept. Everything that people understand today, it is so, they don't understand things throughout history. They don't know history. They don't even know how the English language and vernacular lexicon came to be. Nationality and ethnicity were the same thing. They actually come from the same root word. It's just ethnicity comes from Greek and nationality comes from Latin. Nations, ethnicity, that all meant the same thing. Ethnicity was not used in the English lexicon until the 60s, into the mid-1900s. That's when it started to be commonly used because of mass migration and immigration, and as people move towards a globalist society. But there was never a distinction between nationality and ethnicity because a nationality always was tied to your ethnicity. And herein lies now the confusion. Now there's confusion, and this is something that we shouldn't desire as people. Oh, what does it mean to be Japanese? Who is a Japanese? Is a Japanese someone who just holds Japanese citizenship? No one actually thinks that. If PewDiePie went anywhere in the world, would people say that he's Japanese? No. Because he's not descended from the Japanese. He lives in Japan. Okay, is he as Japanese as the person who is descended from Japan for thousands of years? No one actually believes this. When I go anywhere in the world, they're not saying American. No, they say Coreano. They say Korean. I've been to so many foreign countries. The number one thing I always get, Korean. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows that intrinsically that there is something special and there's something important as part of our identity in where we come from, in our ancestry, and in our heritage. But what's happening right now is, in the same way that we see with radical individualism, we see with transgenderism, it is a reintroduction of Gnostic thought into society. Why? Because Gnosticism teaches that the material world and anything material is something to be overcome. It is actually not important or bad, and actually your spiritual self, your self-identification is actually the only thing that matters, right? Your inner spiritual reality is the only thing that matters. And actually the goal of the person is a detachment of your inner spiritual reality from your physical embodiment. Your body is something to overcome. But the problem is, not only Christianity, but proper, just regular human anthropology, we all know this, that we are a unity between body and soul. We are dualistic beings. That our body is a part of our soul, and that is intrinsically intertwined. That's why God has different commandments for men and women, for example. Because as you might just chalk up male and female to your biology, but also no, that is part of who you are spiritually. That is part of who you are in your soul. We are very, very much dualistic. Your body is not accidental, and your ancestry, sex, family, peoplehood are real aspects of who God created you to be. People keep saying this. They say this online. There's a lot of memes about, oh man, like the chances of you being born blank is this blank percent. No, it's not. You being born as who you are is 100%. Because you're not an accident. Your ancestry, your genetics are not an accident. Right? So a Gnostic impulse, especially when it comes to this topic, it says what you physically are is irrelevant. What matters is what you choose, feel, or identify as. And this is what a lot of the people who say America's a propositional nation say, right? That it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter who you are physically. Your ancestry doesn't matter. It just matters about what you believe. That's the only thing that matters. No, but that's not true. We all know that's not true. Why do you think people, even those people who say that America is only a propositional nation, why do you think they look at me and they're like Korean? They're like, yeah, man, I like kimchi. They're trying to relate to me because I'm Korean. Because they know I'm Korean. It's a part of who I am. And so modern Western culture increasingly treats identity as something internally constructed rather than received. But we know that, again, nations are not arbitrary social constructs, but they're extended historic families. That's what a nation is. Shared ancestry, a people group. That's what a nation always is. When the Bible talks about every nation, every tribe, every tongue will come and confess that Christ is Lord, they will come together and, submit to Christ in the end of days, and they will see him. They will see him exalted. Yeah, that's literally, nations are people groups. Because why? That's what it meant historically throughout all of history. Everyone understood this. But when it comes to our identity is not self-constructed. I'm sorry to say that. People need to understand this. Your identity is not self-constructed. It's not internally constructed. It is received. If you as a Christian believe in God, you believe that your identity as a son or daughter of God is not something because of what you did. It's not a product of what you've done. It is merely by the grace of God. It is something you receive because God has created you to be a son or daughter of God. Many people in the past used to always say this when they introduce themselves. They don't say this anymore, which is, again, this is a product of our Gnostic modernity. Whenever they introduce themselves, they would say, hey, my name is this, son of this. I am this, daughter of this person. In Korean, they always say that too. And every single civilized society, they always said this. They always introduce themselves as a part of their clan and who their parents are. Why? Why? Because that is a core part of who you are. That is a core part of your identity. Your identity is formed by your relationships, your natural bonds, where you come from. That is a big part of who you are. And yes, you might have different beliefs, different customs, sure. But your identity is, first and foremost, it is received. It is not internally constructed. And that is the great lie of transgenderism. That is the great lie of radical individualism that says that we're all just isolated units and you can just become and be whoever you want to be. No, that's not true. I will never be a black person. I will never be a black person because I'm Korean. I'll never be a white person because I'm Korean. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. But the more that you try to gaslight everyone into thinking that it's not true, the more that people will become rootless cosmopolitans that have no roots, that have no ties to their land and their culture and their history and their ancestry and their family. And as a result, what happens? Rootless people are easy to control. If people don't have a foundation, they're easy to control. And so I think I want to talk about this in terms of, modern society increasingly teaches that objective realities such as sex, ancestry, peoplehood, family are meaningless and can be replaced entirely by subjective self-identification. Yeah, this is just not true. This is just not true. And then what applies to this context with Zion, Suzuki, and Japan, we need to ask ourselves, is Japan fundamentally an ancestral nation that welcomes outsiders to assimilate, or Japan merely a legal territory whose population can be endlessly redefined? And I think we all believe the former, where Zion Suzuki, he should not be treated with harm. He should not be hurt because of his mixed ancestry. But the reality is he's half Japanese. He is not fully Japanese. He is not as Japanese as someone who descended from Japan for many, many years. But the means by which immigrants have always assimilated into a culture, into a country, has always been through marriage. And so if Zion Suzuki marries a Japanese woman, their children will probably look actually more Japanese than they do black. And then their children marry Japanese. Yeah, by that generation, probably be indistinguishable from other Japanese people. I'm not like a racial purist. But just because I'm not a racial purist, just because racial purity is not a thing that I agree with, doesn't mean that I discount the reality of ancestry and ethnicity. This is how we know. If you take a 20andMe quiz or you do a test, an ancestry test, you know where you come from. That's why they have categories. You have certain percentage Mediterranean and this certain percentage Nigerian or this people group. Because everyone knows that these are real. They're not socially constructed, but these are realities. These are real parts of our identity. And to say and to gaslight people that, oh yeah, nationality, ethnicity, they're completely separate concepts and should be untethered from one another, it is literally peak clownery. It is not how we think. This is not actually what we believe. And it's not what actually people understand and how they see the world. It is literally it's just gaslighting. It's just literally gaslighting at this point. And so there's nothing wrong with wanting to preserve your country for your people, because why? A nation is first and foremost is people. And a nation is an extension of a family. It is historical communities that come from shared ancestries. That's what a nation is. That's how people have always oriented themselves and organized themselves throughout society, throughout human history, all the time. And as a Christian, you can say that, yes, there's human equality before God, that mixed race individuals are not lesser than, and that they are still beings with dignity and image bearers of God. But you can also acknowledge the legitimacy of peoples and nations, heritage, and that's a real thing, and the importance of ancestry and inherited identity. That our identity, again, it's not self-constructed internally. It is received. We are defined by our interactions, our relationships, and where we come from. That's what defines us. And then, yes, like what we believe about all of those things and how we understand those relationships. That's what defines us. But your identity is not self-constructed, and that is the biggest lie. So when it comes to Zion Suzuki, no, objectively, he is not as Japanese as another Japanese person. No one believes that because everyone can see just by the picture, he is different. He is different. He is different than other people. But just because he's different doesn't mean that we treat him cruelly. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you ignore that reality. Because what happens as a result, it opens the door to the destruction and displacement of your peoples and your country. So yes, I do think that we need to move towards the tie between ethnicity and nationality once again, because the traditional understanding and the understanding throughout all of human history for nations has always been a shared home, a home for a shared people with shared ancestry and culture. And people need to understand this, or else people will become, again, rootless cosmopolitans, untethered from their roots, and easy to control from godless globalist elites who want to control you. And that is why the Christian patriot, not only just the Christian, but the Christian patriot who loves their country and holds on to where they come from, are the strongest bulwark against tyranny and against godless powers. Because if you know where you come from and who you are, then you can move confidently into the future in what you have to do in boldness and conviction. So yes, ethnicity matters, race in fact does matter. Why? Because ethnicity, ancestry matters. Ancestry matters. Where you come from matters. And that is all inherited. So who we are physiologically matters. We're not Gnostics as Christians. We believe that we are embodied souls, that our bodies and soul are intertwined. that you cannot escape your body. It is a part of who you are. Don't escape it. Don't ignore it. Actually, we need to talk more about it, in my opinion, but in a healthy way and in a productive way. That being said, the last thing I'll say about this issue, because we've been going long. Sorry, I just yap too much. I just yap. I feel so bad for producer E over there. I think he's like holding in. He has to go to the bathroom. But I'm gonna wrap this up. This one thought: we do have half black, half Japanese people. We have Rui Hachimura. He plays for the NBA, I believe. Does he? Yeah, he plays Lakers, right? Yeah, he plays for the Lakers. He's a good basketball player. We also have a middle on the Japanese volleyball team. His name is Larry Ibade Dan. And then this is what he looks like right here. I guess you can't see it. I don't know if you can see it. But yeah, so basically, yeah. And it's for all of these players, you all intrinsically know that they're different. Why? Because they're black. They are. They're part black, so they are different than other Japanese people. To look at a picture with these half black athletes and to say that, oh, they are not different than the average Japanese, yeah, it's just foolishness. You don't have to lie. You don't have to lie. But at the same time, if they are assimilating, if they're becoming a productive member of society, I don't think it is bad because, again, every single nation had its cohort of immigrants and had its sex community of foreigners. But one thing I do want to advise against, I want to advise against the global homo agenda of diversity, equity, inclusion, to say that if you are a hateful person, if you want to preserve tradition and your ancestry, I want to warn against that. Because once you start to normalize this throughout society, because it should be an exception in your society. It should not be the norm. But once you start to elevate them into becoming representatives on behalf of your country, that's when you start to lose your national identity. Where if you start to normalize, hey, look at all these black Japanese people who are just as Japanese as Japanese as other Japanese and ancestral Japanese, then you start to normalize your country becoming lost and subverted and endlessly redefined into something that it's not. That's the warning, where I don't have anything inherently against Zion Suzuki playing as a goalkeeper for Japan. But once you start to elevate non-Japanese people, non-ancestral Japanese people, and this goes for Korea, this goes for any European country. You look at the French team, right? The entire French team they're black. They're sub-Saharan African, and they have like African names. But you start to do that as representatives of your country on your world stage, what happens inherently is a normalization of the displacement of your people. And you will no longer have a people. And I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. For example, I don't want white people on the Korean national soccer team. Call me hateful, but I don't want white people representing Korea at the World Cup. I'm not hateful for that. It's just I think Koreans should represent Korea. And you can say, yes, Zion Suzuki grew up in Japan, adopted his mother's surname. He's half Japanese. Yes, I agree with, yes, that's all true. But then to normalize okay, non-ethnic Japanese becoming the face of Japan, it normalizes it. And it results in the displacement and the loss of your country. Why? Because a nation is, like I said, a home for shared people with people with shared ancestry and customs. I'll say that over and over again because a nation is first and foremost its people. That's what I'll say about it. There's a lot of people online who are saying, what the heck, what is an N-word doing on the Japanese team? I'm like, okay, dude, relax. And then there's other people who are saying, he's just as Japanese as everyone else. Look, screw you, racist. I'm like, okay, shut up. It's like, this is the conversation we have to have, like thinking about nationhood, peoplehood in a serious way, because we do want to preserve our countries, but that doesn't mean that we can't have foreigners in our countries. But at the same time, doesn't mean that we should have non-natives represent our country on the world stage. I would say no. I would say no. In the same way, I don't want white people being in the National Assembly in Korea, and I don't want white people, I don't want black people, I don't want Indians representing Korea on the national soccer team. There's nothing wrong with that. And the more that you normalize this, people say, "Oh, you're just scaremongering, fear-mongering." Yeah, the more that you normalize this is the inevitable result. The French national soccer team. This is the inevitable result. What is the point of winning if you import foreigners to win? At that point, is your country even winning at that point? No, it's not. You're being invaded. And foreigners are winning on behalf of you, wearing your country as a costume. That's something that we shouldn't want. Preserve your country. There's nothing hateful about that. That's actually a righteous endeavor to preserve your home for your peoples. That is actually a righteous endeavor because God is a God of order. And so if we want social cohesion, we want high trust again in society, of course, we want Christianity to reign, but also we should move towards more homogeneous societies where people have a home with other people that they recognize and that they know. That's why, again, like I said, I go to Korea. Everyone, they don't. If you're white or if you're non-Korean in Korea, even if you speak perfect Korean, they're gonna first start talking to you in English. But when I go to Korea, although my English is better than my Korean, they're gonna first start talking to me in Korean. And I start talking in Korean. They're like, "Oh, you're from America, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." But that is how we should think about this issue. It was very contentious. And there's a lot of memeing happening on both sides and a lot of, I'm going to own the chuds, I'm going to own the libs. But ultimately, I do think that we need to think about this at a higher level. That does it for our news segments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Now we will get to your questions. Let's see. What is our first question? We're going to, by the way, again, we let you ask questions on X and on Instagram, and we answer your questions on this show every single episode. And we also answer your super chats. So if you haven't sent super chats in yet and you want to answer a question, make sure to do so at this time because I will answer your super chats. I will read your super chats live on air. Okay, that being said, can we get the first question up? All right. This comes from Dubrew 916 on Instagram. Do you think we're close to societal collapse? I think yes and no. And what I mean by that is I do think that, can we get like my preview out of here? This is really distracting. I do think that there will come a turning point where things will get really, really ugly and violent because of the left-wing hegemony that exists in especially the West. And I'll talk about this from a purely Western context. Because once you start telling people that it is hateful to be proud of where you come from and who you are and your ancestry, but then you tell all other groups of people that it's okay to be proud of where you come from and who you are, yeah, there will be a breaking point. There will be a breaking point. When you say that, Black Lives Matter is something that is good and celebrated throughout all our institutions, but you're banned on social media if you say White Lives Matter, yeah, there's going to come a breaking point where people are fed up and they're saying, why do I have to indulge in such ethnic self-hatred while other groups are all given preferential treatment? I think there will come a breaking point. You saw in Ireland, right, all the riots because the Irish were pissed off that the Irish government is always giving preferential treatment and importing all these African and third world migrants and giving them all Irish taxpayer money. And then what happens as a result? Well, you're going to have a Sudanese migrant try to behead an Irishman, and then they gaslight you, saying that you're hateful for noticing. Yeah, people are going to get fed up. And so I don't think it's always like a strong vocalized minority who changes the course of history and society. So I don't think that society is going to collapse. I don't think it will. But I do think that things will get ugly very soon if we don't rectify all of our problems with political solutions. And politics, we all know, it's a proxy for war. And so it exists in place of war, where we use politics, we use voting, we use all of these systems to effectuate change throughout society without using violence. That's what it exists for. But if political solutions aren't working and people are getting fed up, yes, like things will get violent, unfortunately, which I don't want to see. I don't advocate for that at all. But you start constantly gaslighting people and disenfranchising the majority of your country, then yes, things will get ugly very, very quickly. So in that regard, I do think we're close to societal collapse, but I don't think society itself is going to collapse. I do believe because of all the infrastructure that we have, because of all the technology that we have, society will move forward and we will continue to build. And hopefully with the help of Elon Musk, we had SpaceX go public this past week and Elon Musk became the world's first trillionaire. I don't think it's a necessarily bad thing, but hopefully with Elon Musk's endeavors, we can go to the stars, conquer Mars, all of that stuff. I think that's epic. I think that's cool. I don't have an inherent, like, oh, we need to colonize Mars. I don't have that desire, but because I'm focused on Earth. But at the same time, I think it's epic. And, that really galvanizes and motivates people and reinvigorates the hearts of young men, especially, who long for journey and conquest and exploration. So I think that's where we're at. Society itself won't collapse, but I do think that things will turn very ugly if political solutions aren't offered very soon for the West, but now increasingly for the East. Next question. Shadow Akuma over on X says, your opinion on the infighting between denominations, i.e. Catholics fighting with Protestants. Here's the thing. I think theological disagreements and debates are really important. They're needed. I mean, that's how the ecumenical councils came to consensus on fundamental primary theological doctrine. That's how they came to consensus on the canon of Scripture, is through rigorous debate. So I do think that debate theologically is very important, especially on matters where it comes to first principles, family formation, church orientation and church structure and hierarchy, when it comes to salvation, what is necessary for salvation and to spend eternity with God. All the things are really important. That is literally, yes, like what else is important to talk about, right? But at the end of the day, I do believe that Catholics and Protestants are aligned more on the essentials than we disagree with. And the orcs are not only at the gates, they're already in our city. They're already taking over. And so the time to bicker and excessively focus on attacking other Christians, that now is not the time. People always say we need you see all these low IQ people say we need a Christian-Muslim alliance. I'm like, no, we don't. And then there's people who say we need a Christian-Jew alliance. I'm like, no, we don't. We need a Protestant-Catholic-Orthodox alliance because we share in the fundamentals that Christ is king, our God is a Trinitarian God, that Christ is the only way, the truth, and the life, and no one gets to the Father except through him. We believe in the family. We believe in the sanctity of life. We believe in order and hierarchy and all of these great things throughout society. We believe in goodness, truth, and beauty. We know all of these things. So, yes, debate. I love watching theological debates, and I love having conversations about theology. I don't opine on it as much, but I do like it. At the same time, we have to understand that we have more in common than we do different, and that trifecta alliance is so needed right now in order to mobilize the church, the body of Christ, to fight against the enemies of God and enemies of civilization. Because at the end of the day, these people who we just say, oh, it's just political disagreement. No, the left are anti-Christians. They are enemies of Christendom. And it is up to us to, band arms and say, you know what, brother? I disagree with you on this and, the papal office and the office of the papacy, and I disagree with you on your Mariology, and we can talk about that, but we will fight together in preserving life and not killing babies to protect children and everyone from the scourge of the LGBTQ. We will fight to protect our country and its rich Christian inheritance and its heritage. That's all things we should do. Whether you're you're a Protestant, evangelical, you're a mainline Protestant, you're a Catholic, you're Orthodox. No, we need to all come together and yes, we debate in good faith and charity, because we're all Christians, by the way. You should do that. But we should really band together and fight and mobilize. Can you imagine if the entirety of the church in America was in lockstep with one another, being like, yes, we will fight for the sanctity of life. Yes, we will fight for goodness and beauty. We will fight for truth and justice, the American way. We will do all of these things. Can you imagine how much better society would be? We could have clean streets again. We could have children not learn weird transgender stuff in schools. We can have good things in society again. So yes, we need that alliance now more than ever. Stop bickering, stop infighting, and this kind of applies to the right too. The right needs to stop infighting. The left wants us all dead. Can you stop arguing about Miriam Adelson? Not like, I'm not saying that you can't call out Israeli influence in American politics. I'm not saying that you can't have disagreements. What I am saying is that, hey, whether you're a pro-Israel conservative or an anti-Israel conservative, whether you're pro this or pro that, as long as you are to the right of AOC, they see you as a Nazi. They want to kill you. Like, get that through your thick skull, please. Now is not the time to focus on infighting. Now it's the time to defeat the left. And then we can have a country, and then we can bicker about all that stuff. So I'm not saying you can't disagree. I'm not saying that you can't have debates about these issues and talk through these issues. What I am saying is stop burning bridges and trying to destroy the lives of other people, other right-wingers, just because they disagree with you. Maybe I'm a little too ecumenical. Maybe I'm naive in that instance, but I think that we should work together. That's how we effectuate change in society. We need political coalitions. That does it for that one. Let's read our super chats. All right, we have first super chat from Marcus Dana. $5. Thank you for the $5. Are you going to cover Fox News and Palantir Jews trying to utterly destroy an 18-year-old white kid because he privately turned down a job offer in a DM? I didn't see that. I've been focusing on World Cup and Korea issues this past week because it's been very, very contentious. But yeah, if they try to destroy a kid's life because they turned down a job offer in a DM, I think that's horrific. And yes, I regularly criticize the excised influence and power that Jews have in the West and American society. And I don't think there's like a cabal of Jews coming together and be like, oh, like we will destroy American society, we'll hurt Americans. No, it's just a product of they hold a lot of institutional power. They're wealthy. They are in charge of a lot of infrastructure, and a lot of them are involved in politics. So then they sway the direction of American society. So that's a true thing. And insofar as their influence and their power hurts the average American and just the regular patriot, I'm very much 100% against that. And I honestly haven't heard this story because I was covering so many other stories and I was looking at other things. But I will look more into that for sure. But at the end of the day, I think it's wrong. Do you guys remember that group chat with young Republicans who are now staffing at the White House admin? And they were like trying to destroy this life because of like jokes they made. And I really like JD Vance's response because he's like, why are you trying to destroy the lives of young people with a whole life ahead of them because they joked in a private group chat several years ago? Meanwhile, we hold none of that same standard to people who like objectively commit violent crime. And in actuality, the left who cries about racism and anti-Semitism, they excuse and celebrate the violent crime. That's why we should never adopt their framing and accept their absurd propositions. But this is the story. Okay, so Cornell student Austin Franco was doxxed by Jewish business leaders after explaining he didn't want to work for a Jew, claiming his experiences with Jews were not pleasant after an NYC startup he had applied to reached out to him 3 times. Wow. One of the co-founders, Gabe Einhorn, posted Franco's reply with his last name blocked down, and Franco was quickly identified. Wow! Einhorn said he did not want to ruin his life but wanted to raise awareness of anti-Semitism. Franco now deleted posts said that in his experience, Jews were tribalistic and vengeful, intended to ruin and bully others who opposed him. Franco stated, I'm not sure if you indicated you didn't want to work for someone who was white or Christian, this would have blown up. Claimed that the actions of the Einhorn Jewish community, posting his reply, doxing him, and then trying to investigate and uproot his personal life, vindicated his concerns that Jews do not work with others politely. Oh, wow, this went crazy, but how did I not see this? Okay, well, this is what Austin Franco said on X. I was stating why I was not interested after you had asked to interview 3 times. I found out you were Jewish after the fact. My experiences with Jews have not been pleasant, both in person and online. This is not to say I haven't had positive experiences, but on the aggregate, that is not the case. Obviously, the reactions by your community only serves to further prove my point and indicate your post on X was not done in good faith. I am sure that if you indicated that you didn't want to work for someone who was white or Christian, this would not have blown up to the capacity it was here today, nor would you have been intimidated as I have been. I think he meant intimidated. He said intimidated. Additionally, even supposing none of this were to happen, your actions here today clearly demonstrate a level of immaturity and possible insecurity, which I wouldn't expect of a 24-year-old self-proclaimed entrepreneur. Given that I have been doxxed and intimidated by your community, including having my personal life investigated for no other reason than a single comment, I can't imagine any reasonable person not coming to a similar conclusion. All right. So he just said that he didn't want to work for a Jew, and then they doxed him and then destroyed his life. I guess that is the point. Here's the thing. I think this is like the same point with the black community, where I call out the faults of the black community, but it doesn't mean that I haven't had positive experiences, but both online and in person, the reason why I speak out on the issues is because I've had very negative experiences. And that's why everyone has black fatigue, for example. And I think it's the same for Jews. When it comes to Jews, like I've had, in my personal experience, I've had positive experiences, but I know a lot of people have had negative experiences. And on top of that, Jews are very tribalistic. And in their point of view, that's a good thing. But for our point of view, if it comes at the disenfranchisement and the hurting the average person, yeah, it's bad. And that's the same thing in the black community, where if, for example, Carmelo Anthony killed Austin Metcalf and it was murder. We all knew it was murder. And they rallied behind him, give him $500,000 and excuse it. They even celebrate it just because he's black. Like that level of tribalism is so really hurtful, and I would say demonic. And so in this case, like he said clearly, this guy Austin, all he said is that I don't want to work for a Jew. And it's like, okay, you might say that's hateful, but if someone said, I don't want to work for a white person, or I don't want to work for a Christian, no one would care. And that is the asymmetry that I talked about earlier, where people are getting really, really fed up. Because there is such a different standard for, you can hate white people, you can hate Christians, you can say all these nasty things about them with impunity. That's why I was trying to call out all these black people saying just nasty, nasty things. You have Southeast Asians, you have Indians always saying nasty things about Koreans. Just the most incredibly nasty things about Koreans. And I'm like, hey, look at what they're saying. This is actually insane. Why are we okay with this? Oh, it's because you hate them. You're a racist. You're a bigot. What? No, I don't hate them. It's just look at their behavior. And that is what is happening here. And so you shouldn't dox someone because of this. You shouldn't ruin someone's life because of this. And this goes to show that, yes, a small vocal minority and an organized tribe is so much more powerful than just a mere majority who doesn't know what to do with their majority status. That is the goal. And for organized minorities, and that's how they effectuate so much change throughout the West and American society, and that's how Jews hold so much power and institutional power. That's just a reality. I don't hate Jews. I have to say that all the time because they're so sensitive. I remember I posted on Instagram that Jews are they're not the chosen people. The modern day Jews are not the chosen people of God. It is Christians. And the church doesn't replace Israel. The church is Israel. It's a continuation of Israel. So that, yes, God used the line of Judah and the Davidic line to bring about the Messiah. But now the promise of God's family and the kingdom of God is for every person, regardless of genealogy and ancestry. And so the chosen people of God are Christians. It's clear in the Bible. People are like, why do you hate Jews? I'm like, I don't hate Jews. That's just theologically true. But they will say you hate Jews and they'll try to ruin your life over that. I think it is so unbelievable. Like, why are you doing this? I would never do this. I don't know. I just don't believe in ruining young people's lives just because of an off comment they said. Because the average person is making off comments like this all the time. But if they made it about white people or about Christians, no one would care. And then there's a hierarchy, right? Where if a white person says about a Korean, people will freak out. But then if a black person says about a Korean, no one cares. And then if a Korean says something bad about white people, no one cares. But then if a Korean says something bad about black people, someone cares. There's this really annoying inverted racial hierarchy that has formed in modern society. And everyone's sick of it. Everyone is so sick of it. Either hold the standard equally and fairly for all people, or stop being such a hateful, vengeful person. We have to move on from this. And so it's just really, really awful that this happened to this young man. And he also said, thank you for also $5 super chat. Even going after Austin's family, doxing his father in place of employment. They justify genocide, but the smallest slight towards them is the Holocaust. Yeah, that's just unacceptable. Why? Why go after a family? Why? What is the point of that? Like, seriously. And that's why the anti-Israel sentiment is so big on both the left and the right today. Because yes, Israel can kill a bunch of women and children in Gaza with impunity. And that's just supposed to be a casualty of war. Oh no. But then a guy saying, yeah, I don't think I want to work for a Jew. You destroy his life and dox his family over it? Come on, let's be serious. This is not justice. This is not righteous behavior. This is not good behavior. It's not healthy social behavior. This is antisocial, destructive behavior. This is not something we should want in a society. So thank you for that $5 super chat, Marquise Dena. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your 2 $5 super chats and letting me know about the story. I think it's unacceptable. I do what I do because I care. I know people think that I'm a hateful person and I'm a callous person. I'm actually a very sympathetic and empathetic person to a fault. But I care about people. I care about hurting people, and I care about people who they have no power and they're attacked and brutalized and their lives destroyed by very powerful people who are very pernicious and nefarious. I actually don't like that. That's why I sympathize with the Mexican man. He's just a dude. He was just a dude who's having fun in the spur of the moment, and his life got destroyed by a bunch of activists online because they doxed him for a simple joke that a lot of people do in private, by the way. Most young men do too, but they get their lives destroyed, and I don't like that. I don't believe in that. All right, next super chat from Kodiak3382. Thank you so much for your $5 super chat. Coming from a bus in Mississippi going to Nashville, this episode before the South Korea was a bit uncomfortable personally, but yeah. Oh, I mean, what the America part? I don't know, man. I love America. I am unapologetically pro-America. I'll never be ashamed of that. I love America because America's great. And America is deeply and distinctly Christian. It always has been. And what America has given to the world, I think so much of it is an objective good. But like I always iterate, you have to be able to discern the good parts of American influence versus the bad parts of American influence. And I don't think a lot of Korean right-wingers do that very well. They think anything inherently American is good. But like I say this publicly, the state of America today is objectively worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. It is so unbelievable what we allow on American soil, just the millions of babies that are slaughtered and just the amount of degeneracy. Yeah. God would be justified in smiting America. I don't want that to happen. I love America. But the amount of evil that is allowed on American soil under our own noses as the church, it's just so unbelievable. It does warrant God's judgment. Now, he's a God of mercy, and we praise God for his mercy. But that's something that Christians really need to contend with. I think Koreans need to contend with, and we have to get through our thick skulls that America right now is in a very, very dire situation. A very, very dire situation. It was never perfect. But when Trump says make America great again, it is alluding to the deep, rich Christian heritage of America and in the great things that America has always stood for, like liberty, but genuine, proper understandings of liberty, of family, of greatness, pioneers, traversing the frontier, all that great stuff. Thank you for the $5 super chat. All right, last super chat. Tubby, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Tubby1278. What do you think is behind the low birth rates? It's going to be deeper than just not being able to afford kids. Yes. Thanks. Great question. I do think it's a combination of a lot of things, a lot of issues. It's a multifaceted issue, like a lot of people say when they're trying to be nuanced and try to act nuanced. I think a big proponent of it is materialism. And the biggest issue is because the status symbol for women in the past, not only in the West, but in America, in Korea, has always been the amount of children you have. So the amount of children you have, your fertility was inherently tied to your status as a woman in society. So if you were able to have a good amount of children, people are like, wow, like that's awesome. I want to be like you. And that has been completely flipped, where now children are not seen as status symbols, but they're seen as obstructions to women and their career. And then so when you think about feminism in Korea, it's not actually super man-hating feminism. You're going to have the weird like 4B feminists who are super niche. No one actually cares about them. Most Koreans don't even know about it. But most of the feminism in Korea is motivated by materialism, which says that material attainment, material possessions are the most important thing in society, more than transcendent, maybe even intangible things like family relations and love, satisfaction, fulfillment in society, right? Dignity, honor, respect, goodness, and beauty. These are the things that we should aspire for in society, and that's something that should be rewarded as the highest symbols of status in a country. But right now, because of materialism, it's material possessions and accomplishments, right? Your test scores, what college you get into, what company you work for, how much money you make, what kind of car you drive. Like, that's actually a serious thing in Korea. And that's become status symbols, what kind of apartment you live in, where people aspire for that. And so now children become an obstruction to that, because with children, you have to be selfless and you have to take care of them. And so it's not a money issue. People think it's a money issue, and I think money can help and it can remedy some things at the get-go, but it's a Band-Aid solution. And you can't have a materialistic solution to a materialistic problem. That just throwing money at the solution, at the problem won't work. You give people more money, they're not going to want to have more children. Because why? Inevitably, children then, in their eyes, serve as an obstruction to their career. Whereas you need to reframe the whole problem and say, no, having children is one of the highest priorities and goals in society, and is actually good. And everything that you work towards, everything that you do in life is so that you can have a healthy, flourishing society for families. For families. It's for the family. That's why we do everything. The priority isn't your career. The priority isn't your just accomplishment for accomplishment's sake. It's not money for money's sake. No, it is for family. And ultimately God, right? Because we want a nation that honors Christ. But when it talk about the immediate, yeah, it's the family. For the temporal and for the material world that we live in, it is for the family. So why do we work so hard? Why is it important that Samsung is rich? Why is it important that Korea develops economically? It is for families. It is for the people. But the fundamental political unit and the building block of society is the family. So everything that we do in society is so that we can have healthy marriages and healthy families and have healthy children. That's what it's for. That's all. If that's not the objective, then what is the objective? Like, seriously, what is the objective? There is no objective. Because why? You can't take any of that when you die. You will not take any of it. But the only thing that you can have as a lasting legacy for most people, unless you're like one of the great leaders of Korea, most people, the only lasting legacy you'll have is your children and your offspring and their children's children. That is the most important legacy that you can leave behind and the thing that you can create in society. So all of Korean society has to flip and then make family values great again, and to love childbearing and have that be the status symbol for women, not career, not attainment, what company you work for. If you're like a CEO of a company and you're an entrepreneur as a woman, no, the goal should be having children. And that should be rewarded accordingly in social standing and economic standing, and maybe even like, politically, like, hey, like, look at these women, and then so their families. And I don't believe like women should be leaders in politics, but yeah, like, oh, look at the wife of this politician has so many children. He is someone who we should aspire to. There's Kim Min-soo of the People Power Party, who is, what's it called? He has like 5 children. It's like, I think that's good. Like, we should elevate him more versus people like, God bless his soul, President Yoon, who I think what's happened to him is really unfortunate, but he didn't have any children. He doesn't have any children. Like, is that the kind of leaders that we want to elevate in Korean society? I don't think so. And so that's all in the Korean context. I think in the American context, I think it's a little different. And I'll just say this for the American context, is that because a lot of Americans felt like their country was being robbed from them and underneath them, the rug was being pulled. So they're like, what's the point of having families? We're not going to have a society after this. So I think there's a lot of disenfranchisement, and there's a lot of blackpilling, and just a lot of people like discouraged because of the state of America, that they're like, okay, I don't want to have children. But I don't think it's really necessarily a money issue, necessarily, because it's a culture issue, it's a status issue. And if you continuously tell women that their greatest priority is to be a boss babe instead of having children, get married, have children, then yes, inevitably, you're just going to have low birth rates. That's why it's not a money issue, because the poorest countries have the highest birth rates. So it's clearly a culture and status issue. And that's how we have to reframe the issue. It's not just money. Like, of course, we want people to be able to have a family on one income, one median income. They should be able to afford a home, have children, roof over their heads, food on the table. We all want that. That's a goal that we should move towards. But that's not the only solution, and that's not the sole problem. In my opinion, money is not the sole problem. It is a status and it is a culture thing. I believe that does it for our Super Chats. Today we went a little long again. I will figure out, because we shortened our segments today so that I don't speak so much, but we will figure out how I will yap less. We were good on time after the US segment, but I think with the Korea segment, because it's so nuanced and I want it to be nuanced, I yapped a little too much. I said the same thing over and over again. I will get better at this. I promise you, my dear audience, I love and appreciate all of you guys. That being said, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Kangmin Lee Show, where we talk about faith, identity, and civilization, restoring all of that for the glory of God and also to save civilization from east to west. I'm your host, Kangmin Lee. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Become a member on our YouTube channel if you want to support what we are building over on this side of the internet. Make sure to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and wherever you listen to podcasts. All that being said, we will see you back here on Friday, actually, for a shorter show, because Thursday we are working on a special project. So we will be back here 11 a.m. on Friday, Eastern time. Until then, stay safe, be good, God bless you, and yeah, just go get him. Go get him, Tiger. Go and conquer the world. The world is your oyster. I believe in you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I'll see you guys next time.